The following is a live presentation of CBC Sports.
It's time for the last waltz. Who will go home happy? The Green Riders hope to ride herd on the Stampeders, and they've got the horses to do it. Mims has galloped for what seems to be a mile. Then there's defense. Once he's on, Greg will not be thrown off. And LeBryant can give you the ride of your life. But the Stampeders need this one. Garcia can throw it on a rope, and he's not afraid to hoof it. Although throwing is what Sapunjas likes because he can lasso whatever comes his way. While Rodney Harding leads a veteran defense that will not be reined in. Hold on to your hats. This ride could get a little rough. Well, we're fresh out of rodeo puns, so what say we move on? 2 weeks hence, Calgary hosts the West Division Final, but before that, there's the regular season to wrap up, and that's what's on the agenda at McMahon Stadium today. Calgary versus Saskatchewan to close out the season. Welcome now to Calgary into the CFL on CBC. I'm Scott Oak. After cruising through the season in each of the previous 3 years and then losing in the playoffs, the Stampeders say all that matters in '96 is the playoffs. But would it be wise to go there on 2 straight defeats? Stamps lost in Edmonton last week, so don't expect them to take this final tune-up opportunity lightly. Alan Pitts and company will seek the comfort zone early against Saskatchewan. Once again, Pitts is the Stamps' go-to guy, and he says he'd rather Calgary finish 13-5 than 15-3.
We know from the past that the postseason is the real season. You know, I look at the fact we're able to finish 13-5. That's going to be great. We went to the Cup in 1992 with a 13-5 record. We won it all.
James Curry and Chris Cuthbert will describe the proceedings this afternoon. James, as I say, Calgary wants to tune up. The Roughriders are out of it, so they can take some chances.
This is a team that needs to take a lot of chances. They've played twice this year, and they've both been very competitive games.
Chris, in Robert Mims, the Green Riders have a 1,000-yard rusher. By the end of this afternoon, the Stampeders should have one of their own.
And it should be the 4th. Corey Philpott went over 1,000 yards last night for BC with 155 yards. Kelvin Anderson doesn't have to go nearly as far, needs just 24 yards. That should be automatic, but I think more important for Calgary is they're trying to get their rushing game in high gear for the playoffs, and they're going up against a tough team against the run, Saskatchewan #2 in the CFL.
On the Saskatchewan side, they have 2 receivers that are closing in on 1,000 yards. Donald Narcisse has had 7 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. He's 145 yards shy. Saskatchewan's going to have their best game passing this season if he wishes to accomplish that feat.
Yes, James, Don Narcisse does have an outside shot at his 8th consecutive 1,000-yard receiving season. I don't think catching the ball is a problem for Narco. The problem should be the Saskatchewan quarterbacks trying to get the ball to Don Narcisse. Coming up on the BF Goodrich TA halftime report today, we'll address some current issues. Doug Flutie made headlines this week with a post-game explosion after Toronto's win over BC. And BC has a prospective new owner in David Braley, providing there's a rush to the ticket wicket. Steroids and job security are issues greatly affecting the players, and we'll discuss them with Players Association President Dan Ferroni, who'll join us from Toronto. No complaints about the conditions for this game. It's brisk, but there is no wind to speak of. It's not bad for November the 3rd, the final day of the 96th regular schedule. It's the 12-5 Stampeders against the 5-12 Green Riders, and here are Chris and James.
And ready for the 3rd meeting between these 2 teams this year. Jim Daly hoping for a win today, which would match last year's record for the Saskatchewan Roughriders at 6-12 as he confers with his starting quarterback, Jimmy Kemp. On the other side, Wally Buono, another brilliant season for his Stampeders in the 90s. Look at the record for Buono-coached teams, and they have been even tougher on home turf. There's the top Canadian nominee for the Stampeders, and although there is not much of a breeze here today, we're off to a bit of a stuttering start as Mr. McLaughlin has to put it back on the tee. He'll get a mulligan to start the game.
Well, he's only 2 points away from having another 200-point season, but go back to Jim Daly for just one moment. It's been a very tough year for him. 4 rookie quarterbacks basically he had to work with this year, new offensive coordinator, and also a new defensive coordinator. So it's been a trying rookie season for the head coach of Saskatchewan.
McLaughlin to kick it off. Aaron Ruffin and Rod Harris are deep, and this will be Ruffin from his 20. And Aaron Ruffin tripped up as he crossed the 35-yard line. Roger Reinson was the man. And Calgary introduced its special teams before today's game. Well, there's Jimmy Kemp getting his 5th consecutive start for Saskatchewan. That's a first this year. First time any quarterback for the Riders has got the nod 5 consecutive times.
Well, you know, the past 3 games, this offense has responded to Jimmy Kemp. They've averaged 352 yards a game in total offense, so he has settled in at that #1 pivot position.
Had a couple of touchdowns, had no interceptions 2 weeks ago in Saskatchewan's last outing. A win over the BC Lions. And the first pass of the game is incomplete as he goes to Donald Narcisse. Now, James, they're saying they don't want to just focus on Narcisse's attempt at 1,000 yards today, but it looks like they're trying to get the ball to him right away. Well, the offensive set for Saskatchewan now with 3 imports on the offensive line. The top O-lineman in Saskatchewan this year, Scott Hendrickson, will be keeping our eyes on Donald Narcisse in his quest for 1,000 yards. And Narcisse has a big job ahead of him, but he did have an enormous game against Calgary earlier this year, 171 yards, and they go back to Narco, and he'll have a first down as he crosses the 45.
One of the things that you'll always get with Donald Narcisse is a player who will concentrate on making the catch. He is not one of those who is going to turn that head upfield looking for yardage, but once he makes the catch, he'll always try to secure yardage afterwards, and he picks up an extra first down on the play.
Jim Daly was saying that the Roughriders really have not let it slip since being eliminated from the postseason because of guys like Narcisse and Battle. Some great veterans have kept the focus going in Saskatchewan. Here's Kemp over the middle. That's Robert Mims out of the backfield. And the Roughriders look crisp on their opening possession into Calgary territory. They're working against one of the top defenses in the league, the stingiest defense. Rodney Harding has been a big plus for the Stampeders this year. And he'll not have Will Johnson alongside today, but Alondra Johnson's back in the middle, the leading tackler for the Stampeders again this year, and Greg Knox at safety.
22 yards on the play.
So it's a first down for Saskatchewan at the 43 of Calgary. And Kemp rolls to his left, looking for his slot back. Check that, that's Narcisse again. So Narcisse on the opposite side of the field has his second catch, and, well, looks like they are focused on 1,000 yards for Narco.
I think that they are, but I want to go back to a point you were talking about with Jim Daly, talking about the leaders of this team not letting down, even though they had been eliminated from the playoffs. That's part of that Saskatchewan Rough Rider pride. You have loyal fans and you have players who are continuously trying to be professional when they're on the field and deliver.
At the 29, a pickup of 14 for Narcisse. 4 receivers right side. First carry for the leading rusher in the CFL, Robert Mims, but stopped up immediately by Mr. McClanahan, Anthony McClanahan, who was ejected again last week, although on further review, it didn't look like it was as serious an offense by McClanahan as first thought.
Well, sometimes you don't get a chance. You know, the thing about making a decision as an official, you have to do it at that particular moment. You don't have a chance to go back and review it.
They did go back and look at the tapes. McClanahan was embroiled in a bit of a pushing match with an Eskimo. When he felt a tug on his shoulder, he turned and pushed the next man, and it happened to be an official. He apologized for it, and no further damage done. Rod Harris with the catch, and the Rough Riders continue to hook up between Kemp and the receivers, but this will be a short gain and bring up third down.
Well, he even made it a point, Anthony McClanahan did, to go after the game into the locker room and apologize to the official because he was embroiled in the heat of battle, and he wanted to go and let the official know that it was not anything personal against the official. He just did not recognize when he turned around and reacted to the tug.
Jagus on to attempt the field goal, and this will come from just inside the 30-yard line. Last game, Jagus nailed his longest of the year from 54 yards out. Kemp the holder. And Jagus puts it through. So the Saskatchewan Roughriders indicate on their opening drive that they're here to win the final regular season game of their '96 season.
In the stadium,
Welcome back to McMahon Stadium in Calgary. Jeff Garcia makes his 18th consecutive start of the 96 campaign for the Stampeders, but we do know today, James, that we'll see both Calgary quarterbacks.
Well, they have a good complement of quarterbacks with Danny Barrett, a very capable veteran, on the bench.
And Wally Bono wants to get both action before the Western Final in 2 weeks. Garcia's first delivery is high to Dave Sapunjas. The offensive line protecting the Calgary quarterbacks today, highlighted by Rocco Romano, who gets the nod as the top O-lineman for the Stampeders again this year. And we'll be watching Kelvin Anderson in pursuit of 1,000 yards running, and Alan Pitts padding his stats already over 1,200 yards receiving on the year. Top outstanding nominee for the Stampeders. Here's Garcia in some trouble. Flushed out of the pocket, and Garcia will run. Takes a pop, but will bounce off the hit of Errol Brown and come close to a first down. In fact, he'll move the sticks.
That's not the type of hit you'd like to see your quarterback taking downfield. Jeff Garcia is a very dominating running quarterback, but when you come down, you got to know when to slide. Errol Brown takes a tremendous hit on the quarterback, and as a head coach, Wally Bono doesn't want to see that from his #1 pivot.
Garcia, 8th in the league in rushing this year. Sat down last week midway through the game at Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton with a leg injury. Here's Kelvin Anderson's first carry, cuts it back inside, and at the 52-yard line, Kelvin Anderson with a pickup of 4 to 5 yards. Well, Bobby Jurison's had another solid year. In fact, Coach Daly says even better than a year ago for the veteran Jurison, who calls the defensive signals. Dan Rashovich, another one of the vets who has kept this team focused during the final weeks of the year. And Benson Donaldson, the 6-year veteran at corner, who gets the nod as the best cover man for Saskatchewan again this season. 2nd and 6. And Garcia again is able to get out of trouble and showing some escapability. The ball popped loose as he hit the ground, but it's another first down, it would appear, for Calgary.
That shows the athleticism of a Jeff Garcia. Once he was able to take the initial hit in the pocket, to be able to maintain his balance and pick up the positive yards for a potential first down here for Calgary. Tremendous effort after contact.
Looked like LeBryant Robinson had a shot at him, and somehow Garcia escaped. I think Jeff Garcia's statistics against Saskatchewan are like a microcosm of the season for him. The first time he played the Green Riders, he had 435 yards passing. As you see, Vincent Donaldson is the injured Saskatchewan Roughrider. The second time they meet, though, he was held to just 214 yards, and Danny Barrett had to come off the bench to bail him out.
Well, in that first game where the two met, it was the opening game of the CFL, just like the closing game this season. And in the second half, first play of the game, he was able to strike for a 104-yard touchdown pass to Terry Vaughn. We got to look at Greg Marshall, the rookie defensive coordinator for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who has done a fine job in his first year with this defensive scheme that he has employed.
When you consider Saskatchewan is number 5 in points allowed, take into consideration how much time Greg Marshall's defense has been on the field this year because of their offensive woes, it's been a pretty impressive job by the green and white on D. Was a first down for Garcia, and he's back to pass, and this time they do nail Jeff Garcia all the way back at the 45, and this time LeBryant Robinson made no mistake.
And Robinson has had an outstanding season. He started the year at defensive end, has moved inside, which seems to be a more comfortable position for him. He is battling the flu this game, but he's picked up his 8th quarterback sack of the season.
Handing Garcia a loss of 10, and this has been a rough opening drive for Jeff Garcia.
Well, you said that Calgary would take some chances in the opening and make that Saskatchewan, and they've been pulling out all stops here defensively.
It's 2nd down and 24 as Garcia works out of the shotgun and throws a long out to Alan Pitts, and Pitts will have the first down. How about that? they convert on 2nd and 24.
Well, Calgary is a team that is accustomed to playing second and long. They really don't have many second and short situations, but when you go to Alan Pitts, who has been the go-to guy here for the past 6 seasons, you can feel very confident that he's capable of picking up the first down. You get a look at Battle coming on the blitz, but the mobility of Garcia stepping up in the pocket, getting his strike to Pitts on the play.
27 yards on the play, 1st and 10.
Well, this is bad news for the rest of the league, but Alan Pitts is heating up in recent weeks. Back-to-back 100-yard games, 3 touchdowns in the last 2 starts. And there's Anderson grabbed by Gary Rogers, and that limits Kelvin Anderson's gain to a couple as he edges closer to 1,000 yards.
Came into the game 24 yards shy. He thought he might have it a couple of weeks ago, but he's been running into some tough defenses.
Last week, Kelvin Anderson, 8 carries, 23 yards against the Edmonton Eskimos. And there are his numbers against Saskatchewan this year, 68 and 65-yard rushing games. It's 2nd and 9. Here comes the rush. And Garcia in trouble, dumped it off, and was nailed out of bounds as his pass fell short of the intended target, Anderson.
And Jeff Garcia has taken some tremendous hits in this opening drive. Dave Van Bellingham came on a safety blitz right up the middle, untouched, and he flushed Garcia, but the pursuit outside to corral Garcia as he was headed towards the sideline. Here comes Van Bellingham, but he was not able to get around the corner, and he took the big hit from Robinson, and this Saskatchewan defense has played well in this opening series.
They've got to Garcia 4 times in the opening drive.
And the measuring stick of a defense, it's not the amount of sacks that you get on a quarterback, but how many times you pressure him and you put him on his backside.
Dave Van Bellingham, a former University of Calgary Dinosaur. Mark McLaughlin is surveying a 45-yard field goal attempt, and if it's good, it would put him over 200 points for the 7th time in 8 years.
Field goal, 45 yards out.
Had a terrific year, 80% efficient. And this one, I don't know. They say it missed wide, and it's brought out by Aaron Ruffin to the 3. Well, that one looked like it changed direction a couple of times. It looked like it was wobbling between the goalposts and back out again.
Well, you know,
the knuckleball by McLaughlin, no good. And it's 3-0 Saskatchewan. Mark McLaughlin, a native of Liverpool, England, put a little English on this ball, and I'm not sure if he missed this or not.
well, it was almost like a rugby kick for him. You're going to get a great look at it as it's coming over the goalpost. We're going to freeze. You see the goalpost extending up. You see the ball right there in that circle. At that point, it looked like it might be inside the goalpost.
Aaron Ruffin brought it out to just the 3, and it's Jimmy Kemp backed up in his end zone as he looks for Narcisse and throws it incomplete out of bounds.
One of the things about Jimmy Kemp is that he's a very precision underneath thrower. The thing is, you have the 2 big threats for Saskatchewan playing wide out, Narcisse and Mayfield. So it's going to be a big challenge for him this afternoon to get the ball to the boundaries.
Big Daddy Marvin Pope trying to continue to progress for the playoffs after what has been a mediocre regular season for Marvin Pope, but seems to have turned it around after the Argo game here at McMahon Stadium. 2nd down and over the middle. That's almost picked off by Greg Knox, and a flag goes down as there was contact between Knox and the intended receiver.
You know, the thing about defense and offensive personnel going towards the football is that you're entitled to your space on the field. Greg Knox is playing the football. He is not going after the receiver, and that is the key. You're going to get a great look as we go. Knox is back here in the corner. He's going to come across. Watch as he makes a break towards the football. And that's where the play is at discretion. You have to understand he's playing the football.
And our spotter, former Stampeders safety Daryl Moyer, is in complete agreement with you, sir. Here's Mims
Number 27, the ball carrier.
to the 25, and
down by
that's
Stu Laird.
not far beyond the line of scrimmage for the top running back in the league this year. Mims with 1,391 yards coming into the game. He'll be only the second running back in CFL history to win the rushing crown, separated by 5 years. So he won it in 91 and will win again here in 96.
9 from the 26.
The only other to do it, the guy that needs no introduction in Saskatchewan, George Reed. 2nd and 9. And a time count violation against the Green Riders.
Chris, I want to go back to that point you were making about Robert Mims. I think the most impressive statistic about him after we get the call.
Procedure, Saskatchewan number 65, still 2nd down.
Is that he leads the CFL in yards from scrimmage, which sometimes is overlooked, and that's catching and running with the football. And being the time that he was out of the game and come back and lead the league all around in that category is most impressive.
So it was a procedure call against the right tackle, Pete Shorts, playing his second game for Saskatchewan. They would have got nailed for the time count anyway. They were right down to 0. And here's Harris over the middle. Rod Harris with a catch. And at the 30-yard line, he'll be 5 yards short of the first down.
You know, you think about Rod Harris. It's been 3 years since he scored a touchdown in the CFL. Not since he was in Sacramento with the Gold Miners has he been able to cross that strike for 6 points.
How about Saskatchewan? Neither of their slot backs have scored a touchdown this year. And you go back to their great history of slot backs with Ray Elgard and Jeff Fairholm.
Yeah, that was quite of a tandem that they had during those years in the late 80s and early 90s. Jeff Fairholm, Ken Austin was pulling the trigger in that offense, and it was high octane.
Marvin Coleman has dropped deep. 3rd in punt returns on the season. The left-footer Matic trying to kick it away, and he got a great bounce past Coleman all the way back inside the 20. And great coverage by the Riders as well after the Matic punt. And it's the veteran Greg Battle, 32 years of age, leading them downfield.
Misfortune of running into a team bent on making a point yesterday, and the Argos did. Robert Drummond scored a team record 4 rushing touchdowns. Pinball caught 6 passes to break Terry Greer's record, and Paul Mazzotti reached 1,000 yards receiving. 47-14 Toronto. That should make the Argos bye week into the final even more enjoyable. And in BC Place, Corey Philpott had 155 yards on the ground, and the Lions beat Ottawa 35-24 here at Saskatchewan by 3. Chris?
Thought we had a race for the leading touchdown maker in 1996, but Drummond yesterday with 4 moves 4 ahead of Kelvin Anderson. There's a catch by Dave Sapunjas out near a first down. It looks like it'll be 2nd and less than a yard for Sapunjas.
Well, Sapunjas had a slow start to the season. After Labor Day, seemed to have caught his stride, and once again he's creased that 1,000-yard barrier.
74 catches now for Sapunjas. 2-time top Canadian in the CFL. And Sapunjas goes to the sidelines on this 2nd and short situation as the Elephant team comes on for Calgary.
Stampeders.
And Garcia will keep it himself and move the chains. Under 3 minutes to go in the first quarter at McMahon Stadium, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders are playing tough against the playoff-bound Calgary Stampeders.
You know, I think the short yardage play may be the most exciting play for offensive linemen because that's a guarantee that they're going to run the ball. They're able to get down in that trench, get that forward body lean, and drive off the football.
John Hufnagel and backup quarterback Danny Barrett looking on from the sidelines. Garcia at the controls. And here's Anderson. Kelvin Anderson puts the ball on the turf, and it looks like the Green Riders got it. It's a turnover for Calgary. Terrell Ulmer has the football, and Saskatchewan will go on offense. And that's what's really going to upset Wally Buono. I think what concerned him most about the loss in Edmonton last week was 5 turnovers against the Eskimos.
Well, also he has to be concerned. He was hoping that the weather would be cold today, but when it's cold, the ball gets just a bit slick. It's a little harder, and you'll see really he just lost it on the hip of Freddie Childers, so he has to be concerned with his young running back gripping the football in inclement weather.
So Anderson sits down, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who lead by 3, go to work on offense at the Calgary 40. Kemp with time, threw behind Narcisse, and what a terrific catch. That's vintage Donald Narcisse.
You can't say enough about Donald Narcisse once the ball is in the air. He does everything physically possible to make a reception. Just great concentration by probably the most consistent receiver in CFL history.
He's asking Jim Daly, is there a chance this is the last game of Donald Narcisse's career? And he said not only will he play again next year, in his mind, he's got several good years ahead of him. Narcisse is one of these guys that keeps himself in incredible shape, and even at 31, he hasn't lost a step.
Oh, that's not really that old, 31, is it?
No, really. Not really.
Okay.
Better not be. Flag goes down as Robert Mims is the ball carrier. Stacked up.
You know, you're talking about Narcisse being 31, and when you look at the nucleus of this ball club with Robert Mims, Bobby Jurison, Dan Rasevich, Greg Battle, the core of this team, is over 30 years of age, but you have to have those leadership type players who know when the game is on the line, who have the ability to rally the troops.
Procedure, Saskatchewan, no end, decline, 3rd down.
So it's 3rd down and a couple for Jimmy Kemp. This is a situation where I know James Curry would say, hey, we're out of the playoffs, go for it. But
yes, let's roll the dice right here. You're only up by 3. They're going to bring in the field goal team. But, you know, when you need 1.5 yards and you have the league's leading rusher in your backfield, you got 3 American offensive linemen playing up there. Let's trust these guys in getting us 1.5 yards.
Well, in fairness, it's probably just outside 2 yards, but I'd roll the dice with you. But instead, it will be Jagus. From the 40, high snap, flags down, Kemp drops the football, and now shovels it ahead, incomplete. But let's wait, because there were flags down, and I think Calgary jumped.
Yeah, you're going to get the end at the bottom of the screen for Calgary. Didn't catch the number, but he was in that neutral zone, and that was good execution by Saskatchewan with the voice inflection to draw him offsides and automatic 1st down.
See, that's why we're not
offside,
coaches.
Calgary number 4, 1st down.
Because Jim Daly had it figured out all along. Don't gamble, just draw them offside and move the sticks that way.
Well, the gambling was hoping that they would fall for the voice inflection, and Darrell Hall got caught in that neutral zone, and the drive stays alive.
And again, these are the discipline things that Wally Buono would like to flush out before the postseason. So a penalty will keep the Saskatchewan drive alive. Under a minute to go, 1st quarter, and the Green Riders lead by 3. Kemp looking over the middle, picked off by Alondra Johnson. The intended receiver was Alan Boyko. Now Johnson fumbles. Who's got it? It's Saskatchewan football again. Wow.
That was Alondra Johnson's 5th interception of the season, a career high for him. But at the end of the play, he was not able to maintain control of the football. Saskatchewan once again is going to get a nice break. Good drop by Alondra Johnson. That's what you hope from your linebackers, that they can play those underneath routes. But Robert Mims came up and stripped the ball away, and it was recovered by Rod Harris.
Calgary is number 1 in the giveaway category this year, the least number of turnovers, but now 2 already in this 1st quarter. And we've got a conference with the timekeeper. Johnson does get credit for the interception. but it's still Saskatchewan on offense, and they get a fresh first down.
Well, this is a team that is living through opportunities right now. Saskatchewan, they have another tremendous break right here, and if they can punch this in, it's going to have to cause some concern with Calgary because they have not been able to play and move the ball against the Saskatchewan defense thus far.
Three receivers to the left side. Bruce Boyko lines up on the left side as well as Mims stopped up initially and a little extra effort to get to the 25 and a gain of close to 3. And we'll have one more play, barring a penalty in this first quarter.
Well, you know, when you think about this Saskatchewan offense and the number of quarterbacks that they've gone through this season, they've only coming into this game had 34 less offensive plays than Calgary, the highest scoring team in the CFL. Their only problem, they just haven't been able to get across that end zone.
Second down and 7 at the Calgary.
Yeah, there's some big difference there. Calgary, the highest scoring team in the league, and Saskatchewan, number 8. Here's Kemp looking downfield into the end zone and overthrows Curtis Mayfield.
Curtis Mayfield for 89, the intended.
And that is the final play of the first quarter. Pretty good one for the scrappy Saskatchewan Roughriders, who score on a field goal and will have another field goal attempt to open the second quarter at McMahon Stadium in Calgary. Here are the numbers through 15 minutes at McMahon Stadium in Calgary. And although the Stampeders have an edge in rushing yards, the turnovers did them in that first quarter.
That's always a problem for a team is turnovers. And you think about Saskatchewan, they had 54 times they turned the ball over coming into this game, but they turned it over once in the first quarter, but they've been able to move the ball, hold on to it, and keep it out of Jeff Garcia's hand.
And give Frank Jagus a chance at his second field goal of the game. This attempt will come from 32 yards out.
Field goal for the Riders.
Paul Bida is the snapper. And Jagus is 2 for 2. And it's a 6-0 Saskatchewan lead.
Crank it up, crank it up, crank it up.
Well, Chris, the results of the first round of balloting for the Chrysler Player Awards were released this week, and here are the nominees for top offensive lineman. Mike Kislick of Toronto, Mark Dixon of Montreal head the field out east. In the west, another fine season by the Bombers. Chris Walby, who gives hope to all of us in our 40s. Rocco Romano anchored the line for the first place Stampeders. There are 2 rounds of balloting to go, but we're going to cut right to the chase and give you our winner in this category right now. I'm going with Mike Kislick because the Argos allowed a low sack total of 18 this year, and those who block for Flutie never get the credit they deserve. Chris, you're going with Mark Dixon.
I think the Alouettes were the best rushing team in the league, and so I'm going to go with Dixon, although I must say this, for guys who haven't played the game, this is the toughest category to choose. Defensive lineman probably knows who he wouldn't like to go against.
Well, I like Rocco Romano. When you talk about versatility and consistency, it comes with Rocco Romano, who has played guard and tackle and been a very dominant player for Calgary.
And by the way, none of us had a vote in the first round of balloting, so we're not vested, but if Kislick doesn't win, there's going to be an investigation.
We were awfully amicable on that one, but I think there might be some sparks a little later on with some of our choices. Here's Marvin Coleman on the return. Out past the 40-yard line. Brooks Finley with the tackle on the explosive Marvin Coleman, who is the top defensive nominee for the Calgary Stampeders. And there's big Rocco Romano, already a top lineman in the CFL in the past, and another strong year. He's nursing a hamstring injury this week, but still has suited up.
But I think what bodes big about Rocco is his consistency, Chris, is that year in, year out, game in, game out, you can always count on 5'9" wearing red.
Ron Meyer is in, spotting Romano at the moment. First down Stampeders, and Garcia with better protection, and it's an interception picked off by Vincent Donaldson, and Donaldson's down near the 25 as the intended receiver, I believe it was Travis Moore, fell down on the play.
Only the 3rd interception of the year for Vincent Donaldson, but couldn't have came at a better point in this game for Saskatchewan, trying to build some momentum and put Calgary away early.
So Saskatchewan continues to set the tone of this game, and You could see it was the intended receiver, the rookie, Dion Tyler, who went down. And Donaldson had the easy pick.
Well, as a defensive back, you have to take an opportunity to make the play. And that's what Vincent Donaldson did, as he eluded Garcia to pick up extra yardage.
First down, Kemp on a roll, throwing, and this one is caught in traffic, and that's Donald Narcisse again. So he's caught one behind him, caught one in traffic, and who knows, he might catch one for 1,000 yards today.
And by all rights, he should not have made the catch. Watch the move by Al Jordan as he bats the ball away from Narcisse. But Narcisse stays on top of it and makes the reception for the yardage.
Well, already Narcisse, 4 catches, 41 yards. So he's at 896.
Then we still have just under 3/4 to play, so it's not out of reach. He can easily pick up another 100 yards in the rest of the game.
2nd and 1. Second man through as Mims stopped up before he got to the line of scrimmage. Flag is down, and let's see if Calgary moved early.
Well, the penetration by Calgary to get across the line of scrimmage, and actually they did move early, so I guess that would help with the penetration.
Offside. Calgary line lined up offside. First down.
Another offside call to prolong the Saskatchewan drive.
Frank Spaziani showing some concern by his defense not making the plays. When you have a team that's tops in the league and they've had the division wrapped up as long as Calgary have, you have to fight against complacency.
Spaziani's defense, #1 against the rush this year, trying to shut down the top running back in the league in 96. First down, Kemp lofting this into the end zone. He was looking for Mims, and a flag's down, as it looked like Mims' route was cut short by a bump.
Well, I think this is in that offside area once again. You know, Robert Mims has 1 reception this year of 54 yards. We're going to get offensive interference, looks like. That was really close to the line of scrimmage, and you're in that 5-yard window. You're allowed to have contacts within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, so this is a very interesting call.
Forward pass interference. Saskatchewan number 15. Repeat first down.
That's Bruce Boyko, the fullback.
I don't know if he can get downfield beyond 5 yards. Bruce is a great blocker, and he has 1 touchdown reception on the season, but he's a very consistent player.
He's the blocking back in Saskatchewan's scheme. 17 catches, just 1 carry on the year for the Rider fullback. And it's first down over, and 20 to go. Jimmy Kemp has time, looks well across the field, and Dan Farthing put that left foot on the line, and he's ruled out of touch. And the ball marked just outside the 11-yard line.
University of Saskatchewan product running that long out to the field. Kemp was able to get the ball, but as he planted trying to come back in, he stepped on the outside boundary. Now it's going to be about 2nd and 9. Can Kemp pick up the first down?
You can see Kent Leonard in coverage there. He's back in the Calgary lineup despite a broken forearm, playing with a cast in this game. 2nd and 10. Kemp gets outside Stu Laird. He could run with this. Jimmy Kemp to the 5, close to the goal line, and now driven back. Well, he clearly didn't get in the end zone, but did he get to the first down stick? It's going to be close.
I think he got it, but an excellent block by Robert Mims once his quarterback had decided to run. He recognized Londra Johnson closing on the play, turned around just to get enough of Johnson and allow Kemp the yardage for the first down. You get a look at Kemp as he comes. Watch Robert Mims. The block has already been made right there. Johnson was pushed out of the way, but the determination to get down to the goal line.
Eddie Davis knocked him back. Jimmy Kemp's not going to hurt you on a regular basis running the football. He came into the game 19 rushes for 27 yards, so he doesn't have that Garcia ability to chew up the yards.
Well, he was trying to pick up first downs on short yardage plays.
So now it's a short yardage situation, and the short yardage team in for Saskatchewan. 1st and goal. And the give, 2nd man Mims to the goal line, No signal yet.
Look like he's going to be just a bit short. The lead blocker on these short yardage plays is Bobby Jurison for Saskatchewan. He lines up at fullback to lead Mim. Bobby kicked out. Mims cut underneath, and if he'd have followed his blocker, he might have gotten into the end zone.
Got to give the ball to Bobby, don't you, the second time?
Well, I think Bobby's a little upset because his son plays quarterback for the junior team in Saskatchewan, and, you know, he gets all the glory, and his dad makes all the big defensive plays.
Give it to 71. Second and goal. Second man Mims, and he'll dance in. Touchdown, Saskatchewan. Robert Mims' 8th rushing touchdown of the season.
You talk about giving it to 71. All you got to do is follow 71. Whenever you can take a defensive player and put him on the offensive side of the football, watch number 71 as he seals the corner. Looks just like an offensive guard. So if his career ever comes to an end on the defensive side of the ball, he knows he has security on the offensive side. Just has to change the number.
Mims following Jurison. Got a big block from Scott Hendrickson, and that might have been the easiest major score he's had this year. And with 10.5 minutes to go in the first half, it's a bit of a shocker here at McMahon Stadium. Kemp had to hurry to get that one down. Jagus does make the extra point. And look at the score here. Bobby Jurison and the Green Riders up by 13. Robert Mims enjoying the second best year of his 7-year CFL career. And a touchdown to put the Green Riders up by 13.
Well, when you need to make a big play, you got to look at getting the ball to your fullback. Robert Mims has delivered.
Jagus kicking it off, and here's Marvin Coleman. Coleman up to the 40-yard line. So decent field position for the Calgary Stampeders, who are going to have to play catch-up this afternoon.
They're going to have to play catch-up. We're going to go back here. You got Hendrickson, the offensive guard. You always expect it from him. He's going to pull. Bobby Jurison is the lead fullback. Shelton Benoit's out here tight end. He's going to seal down on the corner. But great execution by defensive personnel put in an offensive scheme, allowing Saskatchewan to score a touchdown.
I knew you'd find a way to give the defense full credit for that offensive touchdown.
Well, you got to go where credit is due.
Absolutely. There's a pass to Alan Pitts up to the 50-yard line, and he is close to a first down, within a foot either way.
Well, back to that touchdown, that was a defensive touchdown. Donaldson with the pick. You got the defensive end and the linebackers with the key block on the play to provide an open lane for Mims to get in.
And a Calgary defensive miscue and offside to keep it all going.
So there's a lot of defense involved there. Looks like we're just a bit short here. So Calgary, we talk about gambling. This is a prime opportunity Jeff Garcia should think about. You got a great receiving core with Pitts, Sapunjas, Danielson in there. Take one, go up top. You need a big play to get your offense kick-started. You see Greg Marshall sending in the defensive signal, and that's what he's talking about. Protect against going deep.
Let's see if they use it as a free down or just use it to get a fresh set of downs. Going to stay close to the vest and move the chains that way. 9:40 to go, first half. 13-0 Saskatchewan.
And you talk about a team in shock, that is Calgary. After coming off of that devastating loss in Edmonton last week, coming back home here and being down 13 in the second quarter.
I wonder if this is going to change Wally Buono's philosophy today about how he'll use his quarterbacks, because if he does plan to give them equal time, Garcia's running out of time to make something happen here. Garcia now just dumps it off, and Danielson's into Saskatchewan territory at the 53.
Well, I think one of the things he needs to protect against Wes Garcia is pulling him too early. He needs to develop that confidence. He needs to play into the late stages of a game when the game is on the line.
Well, Danny Barrett is charting at the moment, but he will play. I think the danger for Wally Bono is he says every time we pull Jeff Garcia, people act like it's a catastrophe. We've got two quarterbacks. Barrett can give us a change of pace. Here's a pass over the middle, and Garcia looking sharper on this drive, finds Sapunjas for a first down.
Well, one of the things that Coach Bono wanted from his young quarterback Garcia is for him to step up in the pocket more, not be so quick to run outside, but to stay in the pocket. Watch the official as he has to get out of the way on this play because he almost lost his head on that one.
He looked alert.
10 now from the Rider 47.
And now it's a first down. Garcia. Danielson stretched out and made the catch.
Catches on number 88 to make the catch.
And he has it at the 49. Check that 44-yard line and just a pickup of 2 on the play, maybe 3.
You think about Vince Danielson. He played quarterbacks for 4 years at UBC, switching to receiver in his 5th year, coming into this Calgary scheme, and he has picked up very well. He's a consistent player, doesn't get much attention, but he's always there.
Calgary without Terry Vaughn today. 2nd and 7, and number 7 delivers his strike to Sapunjas, bounced off the tackle, has the first down. Big catch by Dave Sapunjas. Aaron Ruffin in on the stop, but the Calgary Stampeders are driving.
You know, I really like when Dave Sapunjas gets the ball in open field. Now, this guy was a converted running back from Western Ontario. He lowers that shoulder, but he knows where the first down sticks are, and that's the #1 priority with him to keep the drive moving.
1st and 10 from the 32.
First down, Calgary. And they'll hand it off to Anderson on that delay, and Kelvin Anderson is down to the 26. Gain of 6, that's his best carry of the day.
Well, they would like to get the rookie running back his 1,000 yards. There's been 3 Calgary Stampeder rookies to gain 1,000 yards, and Kelvin Anderson would be the 4th. On a search run, he was able to pick up 6 on first down.
Hugh McInnes, James Sykes, and Gary Allen, who was the last Stampeder. And now within 6. One more carry like the last, and Anderson's over the mark. They're looking for the first down here, though, and they've got it to Pitts. Working against Aaron Ruffin, Alan Pitts has another catch to move the chains.
Now, this is when Jeff Garcia is at his best. He has his running game working, and he's able to spread the ball around to his wealth of receivers. You've seen 3 different slots catch the ball on this drive. You've seen Danielson, Sapunjas, and now Pitts picking up another first down.
So this is the best drive for the Stampeders today, under 6.5 minutes to go, first half. And out of the shotgun, Garcia throws back against the blow, and Sapunjas couldn't bring it off the shoe tops.
Take it off the shoe tops, incomplete.
Now, this is a situation that Calgary's offense has been in often because they have such a vertical game. They don't get many 2nd and shorts. It's 2nd and long most of the time. And now it's most important that he makes something happen inside the red zone.
Let's see what John Huffnagel and the Calgary Brain Trust have up their sleeve on 2nd and 10 from the 16. Working against 6 DBs for Saskatchewan. Here comes the rush from Greg Battle. Garcia got outside. He'll pull it down and is nailed at the 9. He's at least 3 yards short.
I think he might have lost track of where the line of scrimmage was because he had Kevin Reed, who had broken open late. He acted as he was going to throw a block, came out of it. Garcia came with the pump fake, but he thought at that point he had crossed the line of scrimmage and decided to run with it.
Yeah, you could see Reed there, but by that point, Garcia had made the commitment to run. And he will make his way to the sidelines, looks like with a slight limp. And again, he left the game last week in Edmonton with a leg injury.
He has taken some punishment here in the first half.
And Mark McLaughlin comes in to attempt a 16-yarder.
16 yards there.
And McLaughlin puts it through. Doesn't usually take this long for Calgary to get on the board on home turf.
Well, great defense the league over this season. There's a strong field of candidates for outstanding defensive player. Tracy Grabley from Montreal, Reggie Gibbons of the Argos, Bombers. Angelo Snipes leads the league in sacks. Willie Pless, the heart of the best defense in the land. And the envelope, please. We'll have our choices in just a moment, Chris.
Rod Harris, number 88,
And while we get ready for defense, the leading scorer in the CFL, Mark McLaughlin, over 200 points with that field goal, kicking it off. And Rod Harris from his 10. And Marvin Coleman got down there first. Harris hopped over him. A flag goes down. And Harris quickly down as well.
Well, Ryan Carey is going to be the culprit on the illegal block.
And we have another timeout on the field. 5:14 to play. First half in Calgary. Jim Daly said he wanted to get Marvin Graves some playing time today, and Marvin Graves, the former Argo quarterback who we saw in a role for the Hamilton Tiger Cats earlier this year, is in action for the Saskatchewan Roughriders at quarterback.
Well, this is a big test for Saskatchewan. They need to develop Marvin Graves and see what type of potential he has with this team.
Graves gives off to Robert Mims, who stopped behind the line of scrimmage. There's Marvin Pope.
Big Daddy, that's the type of plays we had seen from Marvin Pope last season. And this is what they need in this playoff drive here. Getting back in the flow defensively. Will Johnson out of the lineup. Marvin Pope has to be a steadying force on the defensive line.
And even in the long run, this game doesn't mean a whole lot. This might be a big series for the Calgary defense. Their offense chewed up 5 minutes of the clock, got on the board, and now they like to get it right back. Graves pumps once, and he's going deep. Looking for Curtis Mayfield, jump ball, and it falls incomplete. Marvin Coleman was dueling with Mayfield downfield.
So he was dueling, but Marvin Graves may have had a better opportunity to run and pick up the first down. He had an open lane. Marvin Coleman, one of the more solid corners in the CFL.
And the defensive nominee from the Stampeders.
When you have a young quarterback in the game for a first time, he may not be able to check down through the scheme, as you saw Donald Narcisse wide open on the sideline.
An all too familiar scene in Saskatchewan this year. How many times was Narcisse open, but the young quarterback's unable to find him? That's the biggest reason Narcisse isn't over 1,000 yards already. Big rush by Knox. Matic just got it away. There's a flag down. Too many men on the field, perhaps. A couple of flags down. And Coleman now down at the 33 of Saskatchewan.
I think Calgary will be hit with too many men on the field. You see Saskatchewan's offense coming back. We got an illegal substitution call, so someone came on too late. So it's going to be interesting. Will it be enough for the first down?
Was 3rd and 13.
So it would make it 3rd and 3, only a 10-yard penalty. So they're going to have to kick this again.
Too many men. Calgary. Repeat 3rd down.
So hopefully they can get a better kick by Maddis, but Greg Knox came very close to blocking that last one.
Matic just got it away. An average of 41.6 on the year. Really boomed the first one. Marvin Coleman is deep. Only Jimmy Cunningham and Kenny Wilhite have more punt return yards this year. More time for Matic. Much better kick. And from the 47, here's Coleman. Beats the first man and is tripped up by Greg Battle. I'll tell you what, Greg Battle is a story. Again, downfield, one of the first men, and boy, a fierce leader on special teams as well.
44 yards on the kick.
Chris, a few moments ago, Chris, a few moments ago, let's start that again so the whole audience can hear me. I said that Willie Pless was the heart of the best defense in the land, and he's the reason that you and I have picked him to win this award. The Eskimos have done it all season with defense. They couldn't have done it without Pless. James, Tracy Gravely, a worthy candidate, but you're very obviously sorely wrong here.
Well, no, a little controversy. You know, I always like that. You know I'm the heart of that, but Tracy Gravely led the CFL in tackles, playing with a brand new defense in Montreal, and once again, a team that's very close to making the Grey Cup.
I knew he'd go for that total tackles. I'll refer to Don Matthews, who knows a little bit about defense, who called Willie Pless the best defensive player he's ever seen in the CFL.
Time now to check out.
Welcome back to McMahon Stadium in Calgary. Late in the first half, Chris Cuthbert, James Curry, and as we pull back,
that's Chris right there.
Rest of the crew, there's Daryl Moyer, the safety we were talking about. Sim Simone is our accountant, the number cruncher, and Dave Moyer, younger brother, is being kept in order by Daryl here this afternoon. Hope you're enjoying this game between the Stampeders and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I'm not sure how much Calgary's enjoying this final regular season meeting.
Well, let's go back to this defensive player conversation that we were having. Tracy Gravely, for the second time in 3 years, is playing on a new defense. He's in Montreal. He was in Baltimore before. I'm not taking anything away from Willie Pless. He's an outstanding defensive player, as everyone knows. But I have to like the consistency that Tracy Gravely has had moving from a couple of different teams.
Well, he's had a terrific year. I think that Montreal defense looks a lot like the Baltimore defense, but I'll give you Gravely's had a great year, and look at Pitts wide open, and Garcia just missed it.
Too tall for him. Second down.
And that's one Jeff would like to have back. I mean, it's ever so close. It's always a fingertip away. Alan Pitts was wide open, but Jeff Garcia got a little bit antsy and put too much heat on it. Sometimes you got to know when to lob it.
Well, there was a top defensive player in the Canadian Football League, Greg Marshall. I think it's a pretty good bet Gravely and Pless will be in Hamilton together, waiting for them to open the envelope.
Well, either one of those are well-deserving of the award.
Absolutely. Here's Garcia. He finds Kevin Reed open, and Reed will turn it downfield to the 30. And a first down for Reed.
Only his second reception of the season, and this one keeps another first down in the books for Calgary. But Kevin Reed, he is the holder for Mark McLaughlin on field goals and extra points, so you know he has a sure set of hands, and he cradles that football in and moves upfield.
Product of Guelph University, 2:23 to go.
You think about a catch he made here 3 weeks ago versus Toronto to get the ball down on the tee for Mark McLaughlin to ensure that 10-point lead in that game.
Garcia under pressure, ditched it off to Anderson. Double teamed by Ruffin and Battle. And at the 37-yard line, they'll mark his forward progress in a pickup of close to 3.
You know, you were talking about Greg Battle when he came down and covered on that punt return and made that open field stop. But Greg Battle is just such an intense player. You think about where this Saskatchewan defense would be if he had been there from the start of the season.
Here's another guy, 10 years in the league, 32 years of age, and Jim Daly feels he's got a number of years left, and we hope so. Garcia, 2nd and 7, downfield, and Danielson stretched out again, and this time couldn't hold it.
But what a marvelous effort by Vincent Danielson trying to make that reception. Garcia put the ball in the only spot that he could, but once he extended his body and made contact with the turf, he just couldn't maintain possession.
And when he lays out, he can cover some territory at 6'4", 215. Garcia has got the offense moving in this second quarter. There's Mark McLaughlin. He has been a consistent force for the Stampeders. And we'll be discussing his possibilities of being named the top Canadian a little later in the telecast from 39 yards out. McLaughlin puts it through.
yards.
A couple of field goals for Mark McLaughlin, and a 13-6 Rider lead.
Well, Chris, coming up on the BF Goodrich TA halftime report today, steroids and prospective owners. And those words are no sooner out of my mouth than I got to make a clarification. Those are totally unrelated topics, but they are issues that came up this week in the CFL. We'll discuss them with the president of the CFL Players Association, Dan Peroni, will join us live from Toronto. And you, Chris, and James, I should say Chris, James, and I, let's get those three guys straight. We'll discuss the first half of this game and try and explain how it is the Calgary Stampeders are trying to tune up for the playoffs. Trail here by 7.
We'll wear name tags to make sure everybody is in the right place. So far, horse hasn't been very busy today.
He could take a nap. I mean, they tried to kill him a year ago on Labor Day, and he hasn't had that big a workout since.
35 for the Riders.
First down for Marvin Graves, and the Saskatchewan offense. Graves sends it over the middle for Narcisse, incomplete. Daryl Hall was in coverage.
And you talk about gunning it. He could have taken a bit off that ball. I don't know if Donald Narcisse really had a legitimate chance of catching that ball. That ball got there in a hurry, and it was good coverage from Daryl Hall, but Marvin Graves could be a little excited right now about getting into the game.
Had that promising rookie year in Toronto when he was a teammate of Rodney Harding's, and everybody thought Marvin Graves was the quarterback of the future with the Argonauts, and suddenly his future has been clouded. A couple of off years. Here's Graves calling his own number, and up to the 42. He'll be short of the first down.
And you talk about that former teammate, Rodney Harding, the crafty veteran, understanding the quarterback draw, retracking his steps, and making the stop short of the first down.
Looked like Rodney was insulted that Graves thought he might be able to slip by him on that play.
You know, as an older veteran, you don't want to run any more than possible, and you can see Harding, he's one of those guys who basically plays in a controlled pass rush scheme, where he's the safety man at the line of scrimmage to protect against the draw plays.
12 years in the league, 10 with Toronto, last year in Memphis. And it's ironic, I think, or maybe telling, that in this 18th game of the regular season, we've spent a lot of time talking about veteran players really prominent in this afternoon's game. Great battle, Rodney Harding.
You think about Rodney Harding. He is the only defensive tackle in CFL history to record triple digits in quarterback sacks.
And the Riders are in punt formation.
Managed to punt. Coleman's back. And Coleman from his 34. And bounced off the first tackle.
Number 17 on the return.
And Marvin Coleman with a pretty good return until he ran into Sheldon Benoit.
Well, the choice for outstanding rookie really is a no-brainer. Eric Gulliford of the Bombers would have had a more serious shot were it not for injuries, even if he had a few years in the NFL. Ted Alford, strong for BC. Joe Rogers had 1,200 yards receiving for Ottawa. But there's a hands-down choice here. Our unanimous pick is Stampeders running back Kelvin Anderson, 1,000 yards rushing in his first season. If he gets 4 more today, that's the benchmark of any successful year. Chris and James, we couldn't make this category controversial if we tried.
And we never even agree on what restaurant to go to, but here's Kelvin Anderson. And Anderson is nailed at the 50-yard line. Gain of 4 for the man we think will be named the top rookie.
Well, Kelvin Anderson accepting that screen pass from Garcia, but Dan Rasevich and Greg Battle, we keep talking about the older veterans. Watch the pursuit and the angles that they take to stop the ball carrier short of picking up the first down. Excellent pursuit by those two old guys.
Yeah, he won't even mind if we call him an old guy. 35 years of age, a 13-year veteran. Here's Garcia throwing to Pitts, and Alan Pitts has a first down for the Stampeders as he spilled over the Saskatchewan bench.
Well, we're also going to get Glenn Cochler for unnecessary roughness on the quarterback after the pass, and those are the type of plays that Saskatchewan cannot afford. They've been dominating this game defensively. Glenn Cochler's put in.
Major foul, roughing the passer, Saskatchewan number 68, first down.
And he takes an unnecessary shot on the quarterback well after the football had been released. You'll get a good look as Garcia's in the pocket. Now, Pitts has run his route. Nice strike. You can't take a shot like that on the quarterback, throwing that forearm when you come through.
5 catches for Pitts on the afternoon, 58 yards. So he has 83 on the season. First down, and Garcia looking for Sapunjas. And Bryce Bevel was in coverage there, and although he's not going to win the top rookie award, he's had a solid first year.
He really has. He's been a solid addition to Saskatchewan's secondary. He has an interception return, 4 touchdowns. He does a nice job in closing once the ball was in the air, but a pure rookie out of University of Syracuse for Saskatchewan.
Same alma mater as Marvin Graves, who's now in at quarterback for the Green Riders.
Saskatchewan has done well at Syracuse University over the past couple of years. Ernie Brown, who is now with Calgary, originally was in Saskatchewan this season.
And you see we're in the final minute of the first half as Garcia over the middle, and it's been a reliable hookup this afternoon. Garcia to Alan Pitts.
Well, that's one of the things you need, Chris, when you're a quarterback and you're trying to get back in the groove. Go to where you know the guy's generally going to make the reception, and that's Alan Pitts. He's Calgary's nominee as outstanding player this year, but he's been an outstanding player his entire CFL career. Surpassed that 10,000-yard mark last week also.
And I think he's getting better at the right time of the season.
First and 10 at the Rider 25.
Now Garcia going up top, looking for Sapunjas, who can't run it down. And again, he was matched up against the rookie Bevel, and that time got in behind him.
Now, this is back to that situation that Calgary finds itself in so frequently. Second and long, because they don't take the time on first down to set up a second and medium.
And that means Kelvin Anderson hasn't been a busy guy on the ground today, and he is still trying to get over 1,000. Just needs 4.
Earl Brown and Ryan Carey are now in the secondary for Saskatchewan.
6-receiver package. And now Garcia has to roam around, and now he'll take off on his own. And Garcia pushed up by Earl Brown, and he won't get to the first down stick. In fact, he'll just get beyond the line of scrimmage for a gain of 3.
Well, there was a lot of pressure. LeBrant Robinson would not allow Garcia to get around the corner. He had to come back against the grain. Bruce Covington got a nice block on Jurison, but he could not find enough open ground to pick up the first down.
So again, they call on Mark McLaughlin with 26 seconds to play in this first half.
And this has to be very frustrating for Calgary's offense not to be able to punch it into the end zone.
Here you see Reed the holder. And McLaughlin good again, 3 for 4 in this first half. He had 8 field goals in the last meeting between these two teams.
Well, Chris, 1 week today, it is semi-final Sunday on the CFL on CBC. We start out east at Olympic Stadium. Ticats there to face the Montreal Alouettes. We're on the air at 1 o'clock ET, and we'll follow as soon as proceedings are done at the Big O with Winnipeg at Edmonton. Of course, the Bombers terribly beaten up in their loss to Montreal on Friday night, so they're huge underdogs in this game. But 6 solid hours of playoff football on the CFL on CBC a week today.
Great month of the year, November, and
it's always exciting. You look forward to it. The chill is in the air. I'm glad the booth is heated, but you know, this is what everyone wants, playoff football, and that's what you strive for.
Yeah, it's comfortable here. Rob Walter wouldn't need the toque today up here in the broadcast booth.
You're still riding wild about that. I mean, Desert Storm, like I said, 90 degrees in Arizona.
Speaking of great defensive players, he had a good year, and I've got to say that just to stay in his good books.
Well, he had an outstanding year. Played last season in Memphis, came to Toronto this year, and was able to help solidify a very strong defense for Toronto.
18 seconds to go in the first half, and there are the career numbers. He's rounded them off for you.
And you spoke about his rookie season in Toronto. He came in, played the last 7 games of that season, and Toronto thought they had their quarterback of the future, but now he's become a journeyman.
And he'll just elect to play out the clock in this first half. Well, I asked Jim Daly, you know, before the game about what we'd expect out of his team today, and And he said, you know, we didn't have anything at stake 2 weeks ago, and we played a tough, gritty football game against BC. I expect nothing different today, and that's what he's got, led by the veterans he thinks so highly of. And again, at halftime, we'll talk to the head of the CFLPA, Dan Ferroni, in conversation with Scott Oak. And that will do it for 30 minutes of football at McMahon Stadium in Calgary. Wally Boito's team is in a dogfight this afternoon against Jim Daly's Riders, who lead it 13-9.
Welcome to the BF Goodrich TA Halftime. Now, here's your host, Scott Oak.
It's Saskatchewan by 4. Glad to have you with us for the BF Goodrich TA Halftime Report. The BC Lions are throwing a life preserver, and the league's top player rocks the CFL in a post-game explosion. They were big stories this past week. The F in Canadian Football League does not stand for Flutie, but when he speaks, he commands attention.
And Doug Flutie got it moments after the Argos' victory over BC last week. It was a chippy affair in which Flutie felt he was cheap-shotted, and he let fly.
Dave Chaders leads the group, and people are going to get hurt out there. And until this league starts testing for steroids, it's going to be that way.
On a much more harmonious note, David Braley, who used to own the Hamilton Ticats, says he'll try to save the BC Lions.
I want to put a credible BC presence in the BC Lions. But if for some reason or other they don't come to the table, I will write the checks if the conditions are met of the offer. I'm here for the long term.
In Ottawa, the Riders are done for the season, and it will take a Herculean effort to keep them alive for the next one. Jim Durrell says he's got a workable plan, and he's got 2 months to prove it.
Will there be work for 360 players next season? And is the CFL a wide-open steroid zone? Dan Ferroni, the president of the CFLPA, can't answer these questions definitively, but he will discuss the issues with us as he joins us live now from Toronto. Dan, do you at least acknowledge the likelihood of some steroid use in this league?
Well, Scott, absolutely. You can't be naive. You can't bury your head in the sand. You have to believe that somebody has or is using steroids in the Canadian Football League, and that's an important thing.
What is the CFLPA's position on drug testing? Would you be in favor of it?
Well, we've never been opposed to drug testing. There's been always a problem of money. It costs money to drug test, but it also costs money to rehab. We don't want drug testing just to be punitive. We want it to be rehabilitative as well.
Yeah, there's the rub. It costs between $300 and $400 for a test. If you have drug testing, you have to have rehab, and the league is hamstrung on both issues. I suppose it's not reasonable to expect the Players Association to pay for these programs, is it?
Well, you know, the other thing you have to question is what is the effectiveness of drug testing? Even with drug testing in the Olympics and the NFL and wherever they've been having it, there's still use. So drug testing doesn't automatically mean there's no more using of steroids or illegal substances. So those are the things you have to cross over, is that the cost plus the effectiveness come together.
Dan, David Braley would like to rescue the BC Lions. They're trying desperately to work things out in Ottawa. What are you hearing from your members, and how concerned are they that there might not be 360 jobs in this league next season?
Well, one thing about a football player is that he's always lived on the edge. He lives on the edge that he might get tapped on the shoulder and say he's cut, or he might get an injury that makes his season, his career end. It's always been a livelihood for them that nothing's secure, but they're optimistic, they're hopeful, and of course they've been working hard to make sure that there is a 1997 season, and they look forward to it.
Dan, now is not the time, obviously, for players to be at odds with the owners. Might the PA just have to go along with lowering the salary cap even further from $2.1 million? What choice might you have here?
Well, the salary cap is a ceiling. They've always had the ability to work under the salary cap and work within it. There's always a crossover. What kind of players are you going to get at a certain salary? And is it salaries that are creating the problem by themselves, or is it revenues that aren't coming in? There's a lot of things. You can't just pinpoint the salary cap as a problem to the Canadian Football League.
Well, you can pinpoint one of the good things about it, because there's no doubt the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have stuck to the salary cap, and as a result, they may be the only team in the league to make money this season. Does that not underscore how important the cap is?
Well, it does. I think they've got a premise, and they're working within certain criteria. They can make make things happen. Even the Canadian Football League itself had one of its best years, making over $4 million. The problem has been the fact that they've had to support BC and Ottawa and sometimes Montreal, and that's been the problem in the Canadian Football League. The 6 teams, the 7 teams have been very strong and very close to breaking even to making a profit.
All right, Dan, I want to thank you for your time.
Scott, thank you for the opportunity.
Dan Ferroni, president of the CFLPA, spoke to us live from Toronto. Here in Calgary, it's Saskatchewan leading at the half. Riders look playoff ready. It's just too bad they're not going on to the postseason. The BF Goodrich TA halftime report will continue in just a moment. Well, it's a crisp afternoon in the foothills of the Rockies at McMahon Stadium. Saskatchewan leading by 4 as we continue with the BF Goodrich TA halftime report. Chris and James now with all the answers from the first half. James, pretty simple, really. The Calgary Stampeders for much of the first 30 minutes did not look playoff ready. The Eskimos are favored to advance against them in the West Final. They got to be licking their chops.
Well, the past 2 meetings, Edmonton has dominated them defensively, and Calgary's offense has been lackluster.
Chris, yesterday, Wally Buono told us that what upset him most about the Stampeders' loss in Edmonton, missed tackles and turnovers. He saw lots of those in the first half.
And there were 5 turnovers last week and 3 in the first half today, so there's a major concern for Buono. Also, a couple of penalties which prolonged Saskatchewan drives. One of the turnovers was an interception by Vincent Donaldson.
Saskatchewan has played very well in the first half defensively. The key is that you have to be able to get something out of turnovers, and Saskatchewan was able to do that. After the interception, Robert Mims was able to take it in from a yard out, led by Bobby Jurison, to get the first major of the game. They have 10 points in the first half off of turnovers.
James, Jeff Garcia moved the Stampeders in the second quarter at least, but couldn't finish the drives. Wally Buono says he wants to get Danny Barrett some playing time. Should we take it for granted that we'll see him early in the second half?
Well, I don't know if you'll see him early. It has to be some concern once they get into the red zone. Can Jeff Garcia get the team into the end zone?
Should the Stampeders be concerned about the way the first half of this game went with the playoffs, the next order of business for them?
They need to find some fire in their scheme. They need to find a way to take the game and just dominate it. They have not been a dominating team in the past couple of weeks.
Of course, let's not count the Stamps out. They're only down by 4 with the second half to play, and Chris, we've seen them come back many times at McMahon.
And I think Wally Buono didn't want to read too much into last week's game against Edmonton because it all wasn't on the line, and it was also on a different turf in a game that didn't mean a whole lot. So you don't want to read too much into this, but clearly Saskatchewan's giving Calgary a handful today.
That they are, and so that's the BF Goodrich TA halftime report. Saskatchewan Roughriders leading by 4. The second half is next on the agenda from McMahon Stadium in Calgary.
Back in the Calgary Stampeders digs where Jeff Garcia and company are 7-1 this year, but trailing today as Danny Barrett and Garcia warm up. And we expect to see both in the second half. And there are the numbers through 30 minutes.
Well, you know, it's been quite even in the first half. The turnovers have been the telling story against Calgary. Saskatchewan was able to get 10 points off of that, and that's what you hope. When your defense can deliver turnovers, your offense can score.
Jagus has kicked it off, and that's Dion Tyler playing in the lineup in place of Terry Vaughn today with flags flying. Tyler's caught from behind before he gets to the 30-yard line.
They come back. There's a flag at the 18.
By the way, an update on Terry Vaughn. Had this been a playoff game, Wally Buono feels that Vaughn likely would have been able to play. Danny Barrett's going to start the second half.
Well, Danny Barrett has come in before at quarterback to start the second half, so this is not unfamiliar territory for him.
Penalties either way. Face mask against Saskatchewan and a holding call against Calgary.
Holding Calgary number 44, major foul, face mask, Saskatchewan number 31, first down.
Ray Biggs, the guilty party for Calgary. Ryan Carey for Saskatchewan.
25, first and 10.
These were the starting quarterbacks. Jimmy Kemp just played over a quarter before he was lifted, and we think we'll see him back in the second half. It'll be interesting to see if Jeff Garcia is done for the day or not. As Barrett starts the second half, gives to Kelvin Anderson. Bounced off the first tackle. A couple of yards, maybe 3, and he is right on the cusp of 1,000 now.
Well, depending on where they spot this ball at,
just about
like he's a half-yard short of that.
Anderson, and with that carry,
well,
Anderson has
they are announcing here at McMahon that he has just hit 1,000.
generous.
Our tracking has him about 999.5, so give it to him again and let's settle the issue.
Well, they got an empty backfield, so he won't get it.
Over the middle, and Dave Sapunjas has the first completion of Danny Barrett's day.
This has been a customary of Danny Barrett coming off the bench. He's been wielding a hot hand. The last time we saw him here, he was 11 for 13 and a touchdown.
Well, our computer desk is now declaring it is a 1,000-yard season for Kelvin Anderson, and number 4 on the year to do it. And then the first rookie in 96 to get there.
Well, he's going to get it on this play. Let's hope he doesn't lose a yard.
Here we go. And he is going to lose a yard. So, well, let's see if they're going to mark that on the line of scrimmage or just behind.
He's going to lose that yard, so we got to take him back out of that elite group and put him down at 999. Let's get David working.
I don't think they're going to announce in the stadium that he has now dropped below 1,000.
Well, you get a good look search play, but the penetration by Saskatchewan's defense up front, those guys get a good job of penetrating. Gary Rogers with the tackle.
Well, they gave him the original line of scrimmage, so it is 2nd and 10. And Barrett gunning it over the middle. Incomplete. Good coverage there by Ulmer on Pitts. And Barrett unable to sustain a drive on his first chance.
The secondary for Saskatchewan has played well in this game. The first half, they basically shut down everything that Jeff Garcia tried to attempt. Now they've come in tracking down Danny Barrett and has eliminated his effectiveness here in this first series.
Well, because of a couple of long drives and 3 turnovers, this is the first punt of the day for Tony Martino. Kelowna native gets away, a beauty. Driving Ulmer, who had to make a nice catch over his shoulder, back inside the 10. And good hustle downfield by the Stampeders to limit the return. So just nicely underway, second half. That was a 60-yard punt by Tony Martino. Not sure if he's calling home to say I got 1,000 or calling to get confirmation of 1,000. Here's Kelvin Anderson. A couple of field goals by Jagus made it 6-0 before the major score, the 1-yard run by Mims. It was 13-0, but Mark McLaughlin and the Calgary offense have chipped away with 3 consecutive field goals. And we're at 13-9 Saskatchewan, just about 3 minutes into the third quarter. Jimmy Kemp is back in at quarterback for the Green Riders, and his first toss of the second half is incomplete to Robert Mims.
Jimmy Kemp got off to a nice start at the start of the game. He was going to Donald Narcisse. Seemed like he might be on track to pick up that 1,000 yards, but he needs to pick that tempo back up. He had 88 yards passing in the first half.
There's Paul Christ, the offensive coordinator for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and Jim Daly was saying he hopes his quarterbacks can continue their studies. A lot of film work during the offseason. Donald Narcisse went down low to grab that one, and he will be about a yard short, I think, of a first down here. And an early decision for Jim Daly in this third quarter.
Well, it's gambling time for Jim Daly. I mean, you're up by 4 points. You're going to go home after this game regardless, but make some statements in this game offensively that you can accomplish some things.
It's a little too rich for my blood and Jim Daly's. It's 3rd and 2 from inside the 25.
You got to think about when you got the league's #1 rusher, you got that big offensive line that you're able to pick up a yard and a half. You got to try it.
Good, Marco. All right,
I'll punt this one away and take my chances a little bit later.
It'll come back and bite you, though.
4-point lead for Saskatchewan, trying to end the season on a winning note, and feel pretty good to go home with a victory against one of the top teams. But Marvin Coleman with a big return, chased down from behind, but Marvin Coleman with the biggest play for the Stampeders. And now, Mr. Curry, you have the floor to tell me that the gamble might have been worthwhile.
Well, I indicated right prior to the punt that it would come back and bite you. And here's a perfect example. But Marvin Coleman is a marvelous returner. The blocks that were set up down the field, he was able to weave his way through. You have to look at where the original line of scrimmage was for Saskatchewan and where he returned the ball back inside the red zone down at the 18-yard line.
Although when you make your decisions, you've got to have full confidence that your special teams will do the job.
Well, I was confident in the offensive line getting the job accomplished.
I'm still with you, Jim. Danny Barrett with a touchdown to interception ratio in a relief role this year. Looking for a major here as he goes to Anderson. Touchdown, just like that.
I don't want to harp on gambling and going for the first down, but a play later, 6 points.
His 14th touchdown on the year. That's his 4th through the air.
And we all picked him unanimously as our choices for Rookie of the Year. But you get your back circling out of the backfield. The touch by Danny Barrett on the football, that was the key. Getting enough air for the ball, for the receiver to run underneath the football.
So we do agree on something.
Yes, Rookie of the Year.
McLaughlin adds the extra point. And for the first time today, the hometown Stampeders have the lead, up by 3 on the touchdown from Barrett to Anderson. Oh, he's smelling like a rose. Well, that horse was quiet in the first half, and getting a chance to blow off some steam here as Kelvin Anderson celebrates a 14th touchdown on the year. He's had over 40 catches. He's at 1,000 yards on the season rushing, a terrific rookie year, and for the first time today, Saskatchewan's got to play catch-up themselves. Here's Rod Harris. Spins off the initial hit, but stopped at the 30, dropped the ball, and Calgary gets it back. EJ has the football. Alondra Johnson with the fumble recovery, and a dreadful way to start the second half for the Green Riders.
Not only did he recover that fumble, but he also stripped that ball away from Rod Harris. Watch as Johnson comes in. He bounces off and he comes back in and strips the ball before Harris is down. Questionable whether his buttocks was on the ground at that time, but a big break for Calgary, a great momentum swing after just scoring a touchdown.
Well, the third quarter has been the big one between these two teams this year. Calgary has outscored Saskatchewan 22-0 in the third quarter of the previous two games, and they already have 7 points on the board, threatening to do more damage as Barrett looks deep, looks for Pitts. It's a touchdown, Calgary. Alan Pitts. Oh boy, Danny Barrett is red hot off the bench again.
This is one of the things that they brought Danny Barrett in for as an insurance policy. He has been most effective this season in coming in relief roles. This time he strikes early. You got the big play from your special teams. You turn right around the next play. You go deep to your sure-handed receiver in Pitts. Result, a touchdown.
11th touchdown of the year for Pitts. His 4th in 3 games. His 7th in the last 7 starts. And McLaughlin adds the extra point. And just like that, we haven't hit the 6-minute mark of this third quarter. And back-to-back majors for Danny Barrett. First to Anderson, now to Pitts.
Well, that's a key. When your defense and special teams create turnovers for you, you have to make sure you take advantage of that opportunity. They saw that Saskatchewan did not have a safety in the middle. Ryan Carey came over late. Danny Barrett went up top, touchdown the results.
Well, this will open up a lot more fodder in the next couple of weeks, leading to the Western Final.
Well, this is what Calgary has needed offensively. They needed that quick strike capability back in their arsenal. It seems now in the past 2 series, they found a groove.
Number 81 of his illustrious career passed the great Terry Evanston. 3rd all-time Alan Pitts. And with 6 minutes gone in this third quarter, Wally Buono has seen the game change completely with Danny Barrett at quarterback as Jim Daly paces the sidelines. But Wally Buono did not want to go into the playoffs with a quarterbacking controversy, but hasn't Danny Barrett just stoked the fires again?
Well, I really don't know if he stoked the fires. If you look at the last game that we saw here with Danny Barrett coming off the bench, and I'll touch on it after this.
Here's Harris, who dropped the ball last time and is dropped inside the 20 as the special teams for Calgary are all fired up, led by Ray Biggs that time. Just a 14-yard return.
Well, Chris, here's the field for outstanding Canadian. Michael Souls had a great season with Montreal. Paul Mazzotti cracked 1,000 yards for the Argos yesterday. Leroy Blue is a worthy candidate. Mark McLaughlin broke 200 points for the Stamps today, and we'll get to the winners. Well, let's get to them right now, shall we? I'm going with Leroy Blue because he's had 11 sacks, never gets the credit he deserves. Chris, you're going with Michael Souls, and James, you're picking a kicker. On behalf of muscular football players everywhere, I have to apologize for you. I want to go back to something, James, that Bob Cameron once said to me when he was standing all by himself, well at the end of the Winnipeg Bombers bench. I said, Bob, what are you doing down here? And he said, well, I don't want to bother the players. Now go ahead and explain Mark McLaughlin's selection.
I went with Mark McLaughlin because of his consistency. 200 points for the 7th time in his career, one season with 199. He has always been a consistent player for Calgary. And when you have a team that you can get 200 points from your kicker, they will always count for 4 or 5 victories through the season.
I think they're going to take the union card away from Curry as a defensive lineman alumnus. Can you imagine James Curry selecting a kicker? And McLaughlin has had a great year, but he does every year.
Yeah, but see, that's one of the things you have to look at with ball players, the consistency that they have. A lot of times, and Leroy Blue is an outstanding defensive player. He's one of the better talents playing rush in the CFL. But the consistency is what you look for. Can you count on the guy every game? And I think Mark McLaughlin has distinguished himself at that level in his CFL career.
Well, Brent Maddich probably would agree with you. And so would most of the kickers. Brent Maddich on 3rd down, kicking it away, and what can Coleman do with this one? Bumped into his own man and is down at the 50-yard line. So everything going Calgary's way in this third quarter. And when we come back to McMahon Stadium, Stampeders have the football again in Saskatchewan territory. We're back at McMahon Stadium. Alondra Johnson in the middle of your screen. Really turned the momentum with that strip of the football away from Ron Harris.
Got his team, offensive team, back on the field very quickly, and they struck the first play.
Calgary Stampeders have created the most turnovers this year, lead the league in takeaways. And we've got some early movement there on the offensive line. That's the youngster, Ron Meyer.
You know, to go back to a point we were talking about after this.
Procedure. Calgary number 63, still first down.
You were talking about the stoking of a quarterback controversy. Jamie Crysdale is the center for Calgary. He and Rocco Romano back in '92 were traded for Danny Barrett. Now they're all back in the same scheme once again, so you got to think that Calgary got the better of that trade.
They came from BC when Barrett went out to the Lions. When Doug Flutie came to Calgary. Here's Kelvin Anderson. No doubt about his 1,000-yard status now. Kelvin Anderson out of bounds at the 18-yard line. It's in the books now, folks.
And it's completely official. That's the way you like to see a back close on that 1,000-yard barrier. This offensive line is getting off the mark. This is what you call a search run. They give him the ball deep in the backfield and let him find his way.
37 on that carry. And Kelvin Anderson is well over the hump now.
Watch as he gets the ball deep. What he's allowed to do is read the blocking up front. But Aaron Ruffin had a good shot. Great elusiveness by Anderson.
And the Stampeders knocking on the door again. Here's Anderson. Popped off the first hit, and Aaron Ruffin helped bring him down. at the 16.
Now we can go back to that quarterback controversy that you were talking about.
That maybe we're stoking.
No, you're stoking. You know, Calgary has a great understanding of the quarterback system that they have. Jeff Garcia has been solidified in as the starter. He started all 18 games this season. Danny Barrett understands his role, and I think that's what really helps both quarterbacks along. When you have Garcia, who knows he's a starter, and you have Danny Barrett knows that he can get an opportunity in a relief role.
But Barrett's numbers are hard to ignore. Here's a ball in the end zone, and Pitts couldn't hang on. That looked like a third touchdown pass in just under 9 minutes for Danny Barrett, but it falls incomplete.
They're very hard to ignore. When you think about the CFL and the number of starting quality quarterbacks in this league, and Calgary has a surplus of 2 starting quarterbacks on the same team. You have 2 guys who can come in that all of the teammates respect, and they both have that leadership ability to carry a team en route towards a championship.
I just wonder if knowing that Barrett can come in and get the job done takes some pressure off Garcia, or whether if Barrett has done it so consistently, it's starting to put pressure on Garcia when he is out there. McLaughlin gets the field goal, and now Danny Barrett's put 17 points up in this third quarter and a 26-13 lead for Calgary.
Well, Chris, a week today at semifinal Sunday, Hamilton at Montreal, Winnipeg at Edmonton. We're on the air at 1 ET, and we're pleased to say that Calgary's Dave Sapunjas will join me as our game day guest as we run the day from Edmonton. Dave will take advantage of a day off for the Stampeders to partake in one of his favorite pastimes. He's got some TV experience, having worked for a station in Toronto, and next Sunday he will carry me. So the day begins with Hamilton at Montreal and concludes with Winnipeg at Edmonton. Semifinal Sunday, a week today.
Now the Green Riders trying to regain some momentum here. It's been all Calgary in this third quarter.
You know, we talk about a potential quarterback controversy in Calgary. You know, you would have to...
Come on now, we got lots of time.
Hey, y'all got these going. He ain't gonna get another play. 6 more.
That's Greg Marshall, the defensive coordinator for Saskatchewan. In his first year, he has a very fiery defensive unit and an excellent defensive unit. They've played well despite the lack of offensive productivity for most of the season.
Jimmy Kemp faced with his second and long over the middle, and here's a big catch. Great grab by Rod Harris in traffic to pull that one down.
And that's a nice toss by Jimmy Kemp to sit there. He had a second and long. And Harris, great concentration on the football. But to go back to that quarterback problem, you know, you look at the situation that Calgary in. It's a situation that Saskatchewan would love to be in. They struggled with the young quarterbacks this year. They've had 4 different starters. They really haven't been settled. And a lot of that has been caused due to injury. Wouldn't they love to have Calgary's situation?
First down. Kemp outlets Mims off his hands and incomplete. And there are some questions about Saskatchewan. Jimmy Kemp is a free agent. The Green Riders would like to re-sign him, and if they do, he would likely go into training camp next year as number 1 on their depth chart. But Jim Daly isn't sure that Kemp is going to be in the fold, and really, I don't think the Riders have made a decision on whether or not they'll look for a veteran quarterback to add to the list next year, or whether Kevin Mason will be the starting quarterback next year. Those decisions be made in the offseason and next year training camp. Second and 10. Kemp going downtown, and Curtis Mayfield with a big catch. Mayfield with the biggest offensive play of the afternoon for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. 4 minutes left in this third quarter. That's a 36-yard pickup.
Well, you know that Kevin Mayfield has that ability to make catches like that. Back on September 3rd of '94, he had 14 receptions for 319 yards versus Ottawa, and that's when he was with the Las Vegas Posse. So you know that he has the ability to be a big game player, and he had 3 touchdowns versus Winnipeg earlier this season.
And so Mayfield keeping his hopes for a 1,000-yard season alive. Kemp back to Mayfield, dropped the ball.
Mayfield, number 89.
And there have been too many of those for Mayfield this year. a guy that came in with high credentials, and he's done this a few times this season.
Well, sometimes receivers are trying to look and see where defenders are coming from, and you would think about a Curtis Mayfield saying, well, hey, he should make that reception, which he should. Jimmy Kemp got it in the proper spot. He was let down by his wide receiver.
Mayfield had 101 yards in one start against Calgary this year. 3 100-yard games on the season. Second and 10 into the end zone. Back to Mayfield. And did he make the catch? Yes, touchdown. And that was a dandy by Mayfield. So he redeems himself quickly.
But he's going to get the objectionable conduct after the play. But a marvelous pass by Jimmy Kemp. Set back in the pocket. His offensive lineman gave him a wonderful time to sit back and find his open receiver.
21-yard touchdown reception by Curtis Mayfield, his 6th of the year. And Saskatchewan getting right back in the game after letting it slip away for most of this third quarter.
Objectionable conduct. Saskatchewan number 89 will apply the penalty on the kickoff.
But to go back to that point you were making about Jimmy Kemp, they don't know whether he'll be back because he's a free agent and he would potentially come in as the #1 quarterback. They have to like the performance he's had here in this final game of the season, leading his team thus far through 3 quarters.
Yeah, he was off to a good start, and then Marvin Graves came in the second quarter. Kemp has just engineered a touchdown drive, and things heated up after that convert, Rodney Harding, in the midst of it, along with Big John James.
You know, one of the things about Jimmy Kemp, when he has been poised in games, and he's been a 60% passer over his last 3 games, so he has the ability to find open receivers. We've seen on many occasions where his receivers have let him down. Mayfield had dropped the one that was wide open prior to making the touchdown reception, but great accuracy by the quarterback to drop it right over the shoulder. And that's one of the things you have with young quarterbacks. Do I know when to gun it, or do I know when to feather it? That time he feathered it perfectly.
Jim Daly conferring on the sidelines. 3:02 to go, third quarter. It's 26-20. And I think one of the things that Daly is looking at for next year is they paid a lot of dues with these young quarterbacks this year. Mason, Rylance, and Jimmy Kemp, and it'd be a shame to let a guy like Kemp get away and then have to start from scratch again, because 2 or 3 years from now, Saskatchewan may be ahead of the rest of the league in developing the young quarterback.
Well, this is the type of scenario they had in the late 80s with Tommy Burgess and Ken Austin.
There's Coleman, and a flag goes down as Marvin Coleman's on the run again. And down to the 44 of Saskatchewan, but this one likely to come back.
Calgary 45-yard line. 50 yards on the kickoff.
I wonder if he's checking on the election race down in the United States with his dad as a vice president candidate.
Illegal block. Calgary number 44. First down.
Ray Biggs is the culprit again. Man, that'll bring the football back to the Calgary 37. Well, Danny Barrett has put 17 points on the board in this third quarter. 6-point lead for the Stampeders. And Barrett going back to the air. And going to Travis Moore, who's had a quiet day. And Moore has his first catch of the afternoon.
One of the things that Danny Barrett does is that he puts a lot of pressure on secondaries, is that the ball arrives much quicker to the receivers. Travis Moore had a big cushion from Nick Ferguson, but the ball is there in a hurry. And what that allows for receivers to get his shoulder squared and pick up extra yardage.
43rd catch of the year for Moore as Barrett is taken down by Glenn Kulka. Moore's kind of been the forgotten guy in the offensive set in the second half of the season for the Stampeders. Here's Anderson. And Anderson running hard in this second half. And a 37-yard pickup and add 13 or 14 more on that carry.
And that 37-yard gain was more than he had accumulated all last week in Edmonton. But this is what they need from Calvin Anderson. They need to establish the run game once again. Calgary had it big in the first half of the season. He hit that freshman jinx, as they call it, hitting the wall. Your legs get tired, you're not picking up the yards and hitting the hole.
Sapunjas and Pitts crisscrossing in the backfield. And now Barrett looking downfield for Moore. Travis Moore will score. Oh, we hadn't heard from him, and now he has back-to-back receptions and a major score. Third quarter.
And you talk about a player responding when called upon. That has been Danny Barrett. Travis Moore ran an excellent go route, one-on-one against Nick Ferguson, and it talked about knowing when to feather a football in. He feathers this right over the shoulder to Moore, missed tackle by Ferguson, touchdown Calgary.
41-yard touchdown pass by Moore. McLaughlin adds the extra point. That will match 45 yards, so that's the longest touchdown of the season for Moore. Number 5 on the year.
You know, the key is that the offensive line is giving time. Jamie Crysdale had pulled out from his center position to come out and seal the corner for Danny Barrett on his half roll. And when you're getting the work from the big guys up front, now this is a great move by Moore giving that ball to a fan. You gotta like that, and that's why the Calgary Stampeders have had such loyal fans over the years.
Here's a guy that went quiet after an injury in the middle of the season. The quarterback seemed to forget about him. He had a little meeting with Jeff Garcia a few weeks ago and has been a big part of the offense here in the third quarter.
You grow so accustomed to seeing Pitts and Sapunjas making the plays, catching the balls consistently, and you see guys like Moore and Danielson. Bond has gone over 1,000 yards this year. He's missing this afternoon's game, but this is a receiving core that is so talented. You really can't key on one individual.
33-20. Calgary exploding in this third quarter. And Ruffin is drilled before he got to the 25. Wow. Ray Biggs, always active on special teams.
Well, Chris, here's the field for outstanding player. 2 Eastern candidates stand out, and it's a shame that Tracy Ham of Montreal and Doug Flutie of Toronto aren't in separate conferences. 2 defensive players nominated in the West, Emily Pless and Katie Williams. I don't see how Doug Flutie can't win his 5th Outstanding Player award. He's passed for 5,000 yards now with his 3rd different team. I think, Chris, that tells you everything you need to know about what an outstanding player he is.
Well, we notice that there is one person that's going to differ on this. And let me first say that I think if Doug Flutie didn't win the award, the Argos might have the 2nd and 3rd best candidates for outstanding player in Mike Clemens and Jimmy Cunningham. Mr. Curry, I would vote for Tracy Ham as the most efficient player in the CFL.
I have to take Tracy Ham in this category for the second time in 3 seasons. He has taken a franchise team, a new team in the CFL to a winning season. And he never has gotten the credit he deserves as a leader. And I think that's one of the things that people have overlooked about Tracy Ham. What does he mean to a team? Doug Flutie has been consistent in his numbers over the years, but Tracy Ham has proven that he deserves a chance at that award.
Hey, James, having said all that, Doug Flutie will almost certainly win his 5th Outstanding Player award, and I think one of the things that will help him is that you don't have a vote.
Well, hey, I've never had a vote, but, you know, I'm outspoken nevertheless. I have a microphone.
You may not have a vote, but you have an opinion. We know that.
And Ham really bore out what you said last year in that great playoff drive, the Grey Cup championship, and I don't think there's any slight at Tracy Ham if you're going to lean Flutie's way. The difference between outstanding and value to a team, I think, has been one often debated in that category. But Flutie's his numbers, and the numbers of the guys around him really tell a tale as well. Clements, with that incredible season he's had.
I think, not to cut you off, but when you look at it, it's going to be like the defensive award. We talked about Tracy Gravely and we talked about Willie Pless. What these two players mean to their team, and you get the same scenario with Ham and Flutie in their importance to their ball club.
Major foul, face mask, Calgary number 41, first down.
And it's a decision that no one really wants to be on because they're both of the most deserving, I think, in the CFL. Unfortunately, they're both in the same conference.
And you know what? The most important award for either one of those guys is who's going to get the chance to go to the Grey Cup game.
I think what it boils down to is a team sport. You have two great team players and competitor in Flutie and Ham. And the most important game, like you said, who will be on the field and either win on Grey Cup Sunday.
First and 10 Riders at the Calgary.
Anthony Calvillo is saying right now, I'm going to be there.
You got to wake up first.
There's a ball over the middle, and Robert Mims was the intended receiver. And that is the final play of the third quarter. Boy, it was an explosive one for the Stampeders, led by Danny Barrett, who tossed 3 touchdown passes. Well, it's been an interesting final afternoon of the regular season in the CFL. It's 33-20. Calgary lead after they blew it open a bit in this third quarter.
I think what's been most impressive is Danny Barrett in the third quarter. The passing yardage that he's been able to accumulate, 5 for 7, 132 yards, but most important, 3 touchdowns without an interception.
And we start the fourth quarter. Saskatchewan with the football, 2nd and 10. And Kemp stays in at quarterback. Throws the screen, and Robert Mims wrestled down by Alondra Johnson, who read the play as if he was in the huddle.
Well, that's what you've been seeing from Alondra Johnson all year long. He is a great student of the defensive scheme. What he did, he recognized and ran right through the 2 blockers up front, made the stop. Alondra Johnson will always be around the football.
Another great veteran, 8th year in the league. He has led the Stampeders in tackles for 6 consecutive seasons. Had an interception earlier today, although he put it on the carpet after catching the ball, fumbling it away. And Johnson almost had the block. Deon Tyler, the return, and AJ got a piece of that.
He actually did, Chris. He came through the middle untouched. Excellent sellout effort by Alondra Johnson to come in on the managed block punt attempt and get a hand on it to limit the distance of the carry. Only 23 yards on the punt.
Jackie Kellogg earlier this season had a block punt in a game against Saskatchewan.
In the CFL, you have to play all phases of the games, and a lot of guys who start play on special teams. Alondra Johnson plays every down at middle linebacker, and he also lines up on special teams. That time he made the big play.
Yeah, Johnson and Battle have been 2 of the best players we've seen today on special teams. Busy linebackers as well. Well, here's Barrett back to work. Anderson out of the backfield and down the sidelines. And well, Kelvin Anderson and Danny Barrett have padded their stats in this second half.
Danny Barrett will hang in the pocket. You just spoke about Greg Battle. He put the pressure on Danny Barrett. He knew the pressure was there, but he hung in because he had an open receiver down the flat. Kelvin Anderson makes the reception. Saskatchewan now is feeling the pressure of this Calgary offense.
36 yards. Barrett took the hit, but got it to Anderson out of the backfield.
And Wally Buono has to be happy with what his offense has done here in the second half. He had shown some concern yesterday talking with him about the offense had not been able to put up the numbers in yards and points.
In all 3 phases of the game, this is the Stampeder team that Buono, I think, was hoping would show up today in the second half.
Well, they needed that, Ed. When you look at the yards that Anderson has had today on the ground, this is what they've really needed from him more than anything, to reestablish the run, because once the big guys up front start coming off the ball, it makes your passing game much more efficient.
In the first two meetings between these two teams, Calgary outscored Saskatchewan 42-10 in the second half. And here today, they've bounced back from a 13-9 deficit and have outscored Saskatchewan 20-7 in the second half as Dave Sapunjas has a catch down to the 30-yard line, a couple yards short of a first down.
Dave Sapunjas always open. You know, he's constantly working. I think the skills that he developed when he was a running back at Western Ontario really has helped him become a fine receiver in open field.
Third down, about a yard to go.
Well, this whole second half unraveled for Saskatchewan when they elected not to gamble.
On that short yardage play?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
A decision that I completely endorsed at the time. And now on third and short, well, this one's an easy call. Look where the football is at the 29 of Saskatchewan. It's an automatic for a team leading by 13.
And you got a 1,000-yard rush in the backfield, such as Saskatchewan did. And he didn't get it. He did not get it. But I like your endorsements. I like your enthusiasm about gambling, you know.
Well, Danny Barrett thinks they've got it.
Well, I like Dan Rasovich's thoughts on this one. I don't think he got it. Let me head towards the sideline because this is a tremendous surge by Saskatchewan. Bruce Covington coming off. You got to follow right behind the big offensive tackle. He had the distance for the first down, but he veered a little too far outside, and Saskatchewan came up with the stop.
So Rashovich and Battle do the job. The veterans turn it over on downs.
And the Big Tuna wanted to say hi to everyone back in Morrison, Manitoba, especially Sam and Jim back there.
12:03 left in this football game. 33-20. Calgary on top. Turned out to be a gorgeous Sunday afternoon, the first Sunday in November in the foothills. We're at McMahon Stadium in Calgary, where the hometown Stampeders have exploded in the second half and now have a 13-point lead. Jimmy Kemp's got the football, though, after the third down gamble by the Stampeders failed to click, and here's Dan Farthing. Farthing in a foot race now, and he's caught from behind. But the biggest play of the day for the Saskatchewan Roughriders is Kemp to Farthing.
Jimmy Kemp has played so well this afternoon. He has showed all the poise that you expect from a quarterback. 57 yards to Dan Farthing, but the offensive line has to give you the time, but excellent route by Farthing to get behind Calgary's defensive secondary down to the 25-yard line.
And there's a lot of time left, a 13-point deficit for Saskatchewan. To the air, and the pass, it was behind both Mims and Rod Harris. Take your pick.
Well, you know, you had two guys in that general area, and it might have been a little indecision on Kemp on which one to throw to, but you have to be impressed with the way that Jimmy Kemp has played this afternoon. He has showed the poise and the leadership qualities that Saskatchewan has been looking for all season. Kevin Mason and head coach Jim Daly on the sideline relaying the plays into Jimmy Kemp.
Second down and 10 for the Riders.
Yeah, you go back to that mid-season stretch where they just couldn't get anything done on offense and getting much better protection as well. Here's Kemp looking down at the end zone and overthrows Mayfield, and boy, Marvin Coleman was all over the back of Mayfield, and Kemp's down there to plead Saskatchewan's case.
I think Marvin Coleman might have been a little tighter than Curtis Mayfield's own sweater that he had on his back. He was draped all over the Saskatchewan receiver, and Curtis Mayfield could not get a call on the play, and Jimmy Kemp was incensed about the non-call. Marvin Coleman, an excellent cornerback, but you get a great shot as they're coming from left to right. Marvin Coleman gets on back for a ride, and Curtis Mayfield couldn't get those hands up in the air.
Well, I think Saskatchewan has a case, but instead they'll have to settle for a Jagus 32-yard attempt. And Jagus nails this one. So the Riders not done. 10:23 to go, and the score is 33-23. to McMahon Stadium. Eddie Davis of the Stampeders looking on. 33-23. Calgary in the lead. Final game of the regular season, and it's been a pretty entertaining affair between the top team in the West and the team not going to the playoffs. Marvin Coleman. And he's brought down around the 30-yard line by Brooks Findlay.
Coleman brings it back 22 yards.
Well, Danny Barrett has been the story of this football game in a relief role again for the Stampeders.
Well, you know, what I think you get in this situation with Danny Barrett is that you have a quarterback who is unselfish, who has been able to accept the role that has been given to him by the Calgary Stampeder coaching staff. And he's accepted that, and he's come in. Not only does he work in a relief role, but he works with Jeff Garcia every day on recognizing things. And when he's on the sideline, he relays that back to Jeff Garcia.
He was the starting quarterback for the Stampeders in the '91 Grey Cup game. And he likes to spread the football around. There's Kevin Reed with a catch, his second of the game, up to the 35, gain of 5.
You know, I want to go back to that point made about Kevin Reed earlier. The catch he made 3 weeks ago versus Toronto wasn't one that's going to go into the books, but it was a very important catch. It was on a high snap on a field goal attempt, and he had to reach behind him and grab the ball, and he got it square on the tee for Mark McLaughlin to give Calgary a 10-point lead in that game.
Reed getting a chance to take more snaps this afternoon with the injury to Terry Vaughn. 2nd and 5, and there's Pitts, who gets the first down, taken out by Ulmer, and a little slow to get up, but doesn't look like any damage done.
I think he's more winded just running the route. Now, this Calgary offense now seems to be clicking on all cylinders. This is a high potent offense that they had earlier in the season when they were going down, putting up the 30 and 40-point scores.
So a new set of downs for Barrett. Pitts is over 100 yards once again today. 8 catches, 108 yards. And now Kelvin Anderson, straight up the middle. Kelvin Anderson, who came into the game thinking about a 1,000-yard season, might now be able to contemplate a chance at a 100-yard rushing game.
Well, he's closing in on that 100-yard mark, and all backs like to be able to pick up 100 yards on the ground, and I think the whole overall scheme of Calgary offense today is to get everyone incorporated. Kelvin Anderson has done a good job of running the ball. They have some backup offensive linemen in the game who are getting valuable playing time.
His only 100-yard rushing game was back on July the 20th against Hamilton. 25 carries, 132 yards. Barrett now looking downfield, looking for Danielson. That long reach, hauling it in and down at the 15. By Danny Barrett, just spreading it all over the football field.
You talked about the long reach, being 6'4", Vincent Danielson, 44 yards from Danny Barrett. A marvelous play, marvelous strike, but concentration by Danielson, and Calgary is marching once again.
That was pretty. Danielson catching the ball over Bryce Bevel.
You know, the thing about this Calgary receiving core is that they all complement each other so well. Danielson, normally a slot back, is now playing wide receiver with the absence of Vaughn this afternoon and responding to the call.
Here's a guy that has to be behind Sapunjas and Pitts for most of the year, and you can imagine what kind of damage he'd do with a full season of work. Kelvin Anderson, and he makes something out of nothing. Calgary trying to put this one out of reach. They lead by 10, and now under 7 minutes to play. A dramatic turn of events in the second half.
You think about that number. What's so astonishing, 305 yards of offense in the second half by the Calgary Stampeders. This was a team that you were accustomed to seeing turn up 500 yards in total offense, and they're well on track for that this afternoon down in the red zone.
Second down for Calgary. Barrett over the middle, and Sapunjas can't squeeze it. Bryce Bevel in coverage for the Riders. And Danny threw a bullet.
Well, he put it down in the only spot that you could put it on where Breville could not get a hand on it. Normally a catchable ball, so Punches 9 out of 10 times generally will come up with that one. That one got away. So I could safely say there's going to be no gambling on this play?
I think we just agree that Mark McLaughlin, who we have disagreed on whether he's the top Canadian or not, will add to the lead.
I think he'll take you off the Christmas card list.
I'm in full support of him as the top scorer in the CFL this year, and he adds 3 more. Mark McLaughlin and the Stampeders now leading 36-23 with 6:11 to go. There's the story at McMahon Stadium, 36-23, fourth quarter action. And there's Stu Laird, who was moved to defensive end for this game.
Well, he's moving in for Will Johnson. Stu Laird started his career outside as a defensive end. But as you get a little long in the tooth in the CFL and you're a defensive lineman, a lot of times you'll migrate inside the defensive tackle.
Is that what happened to you? Is that a pick? It is an interception. Anthony McClanahan on the tip drill, and McClanahan's on the move. So just about everything going the Stampeders' way in this second half.
Hey, I think with the emergence of Calgary's offense, it has Coach Buono very happy. He has to be pleased with the way that his defense is played here in the second half. The points that Saskatchewan was able to accumulate in the first half came off of turnovers. But now watches the drop by the linebackers. And when you get your linebackers in that deep drop, it really helps out your defensive backs. And on the tip drill, McClanahan came up with the pick.
Well, a guy who has gotten a lot of attention in Calgary this year.
That's for you, Ma.
That's his first interception. Looks like he's going to keep the ball. And lost in all the controversy of McClanahan, as he's had a pretty strong season, that outside linebacker. That's Farrell Duclair with his first carry of the game.
Hey, Ma, that's for you, baby. That's for my mom, baby. For my mom. I love my mom. My mom ball. And my mom balls. That's all my mom ball.
Yeah, I think everybody talks about the ejections, maybe that hit a few weeks ago on Doug Flutie, but McClanahan has graded out pretty well as far as the Calgary defense all season long. Here's a 2nd and 10 for Barrett. A lot of time over the middle, and there's a vintage Sapunjas catch up top to bring it down.
To go back to that point on McClanahan, he is a very solid ball player for Calgary. Came in late, halfway through the season last year and blended into that defensive scheme very well. David Sapunjas, once again, excellent effort going after the football.
Stampeders threatening again. First down at the Saskatchewan 16. 27 second half points so far. Barrett has a completion to Sapunjas at the 10. And they'll get 6 on that first down reception.
You know, there's been a lot of talk in the CFL about who's the best passer in this league and who throws the best ball. I think Danny Barrett would have to rate right up there in the top of that list, because I've never seen a better thrown ball in anyone's CFL arsenal than Danny Barrett's. And he's been around since 1983.
Yep, 12 years in the CFL. Second and 4. Tosses outside. Duclair spins down for a first down around the 1-yard line. And John Hufnagel's making sure everybody is getting their chance today. Duclair, who has 1 touchdown on the year against the Montreal Alouettes, almost had his second.
And this is his longest run of the year. His previous longest run was 4 yards, but you can see once he got those shoulders squared, and that's what you look for in young running backs. Can they square up when they get to the line of scrimmage?
He's a Montreal native, a big throw for him to score his first CFL touchdown against the Owls. And now first and goal, and Duclair is into the end zone. Touchdown. Well, you got two different stories there. The reaction of Greg Marshall, who's seen it all slip away in the second half, and Danny Barrett, who has engineered an impressive Calgary offensive arsenal in the second half.
He has been a very effective quarterback since coming off the bench at the start of the second half. This Calgary offense has responded very well, and they have to like what they've seen today. They're going to get next week off before playing in the Western Final against the winner of that Edmonton-Winnipeg game. But I think they served notice this afternoon that we're back offensively.
Pretty good half of work for Danny Barrett. McLaughlin adds the extra point, and it's a 20-point lead for the Stampeders at McMahon.
Tomorrow's Calgary Herald to see what
Farrell Duclair has his second CFL touchdown, capping that latest scoring drive by the Stampeders.
The big guys up front getting off the ball, though, that's most important, and that's what offensive linemen love to do, is drive block, and they're at their best when they're doing that.
Duclair's a load, 6'3", 220.
And he was running behind a house, looked like.
Aaron Ruffin. And Ray Biggs closes the seam again.
Biggs with the special teams tackle.
Well, here's Calgary owner Sid Gucci, first year of ownership of this team. He just looked at the scoreboard and said 43-23 for Calgary, and you don't like it. Explain that.
Well, now, I'll tell you, most teams here in the CFL, I think, are fairly equal. I mean, certainly we have standouts that look a little better than the others, but the good part about this to every fan is that any team in the CFL can beat any other team at any time. And that's what makes it exciting.
Sid, your style of ownership is very much hands-off. Your predecessor was in the paper daily, and you never knew which section he was going to be in. You're rarely mentioned.
But, you know, certainly we've tried to push the coaches and the players and where it's at. I mean, that's what people are more interested in than knowing anything about the owner. An owner should come to the game, enjoy it, and go back home.
All right, Sid, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
Chris? Well, we need more owners in the league with that attitude.
It would make things much more funner for the fans and the players, I think, if everything was just left upon them, left the business end out of the ballparks and out of everything else.
Second and 10 for Jimmy Kemp, who has missed on his last 4. Has one here. And Mayfield, or Rod Harris checked that. Anthony McClanahan lost his lid.
Yeah, but he got right back in pursuit of that play. He went off and left the lid and went downfield to get in tackle pursuit. Mayfield has had a very quiet afternoon, but catches one here and picks up a first down.
Well, what might be the last offensive drive of the season for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Kemp wants to make the most of it. Downfield farthing, looked like it hopped off the turf, incomplete.
Yeah, it came up just a bit short. You know, you think about next weekend, you got Hamilton, Montreal. That's going to be a very interesting game. Those two teams have had 2 outstanding shootouts. Anthony Cavill did not finish the game. We could look at Robert Mims' numbers on the season. Only George Reed has gained more in a single season for Saskatchewan. But with Hamilton and Montreal, that's going to make for a very interesting matchup if Calvillo is healthy.
There's Kemp. He's going to air it out, looking downfield. And Mayfield was in a battle with Al Jordan, and it falls incomplete. Well, the first 2 meetings between those 2 teams were 2 of the best football games of the year. The Tiger Cats coming from behind at Ivor Wynn and then doing the same at Olympic Stadium, but that game went to overtime, and the Alouettes were able to rebound and win that. So they've split the 2 games during the regular season. And I guess a lot of it will hinge on Calvillo's status.
It does. You know, he's thrown up some big numbers since coming back from that hamstring injury. But Tracy Ham, the most efficient quarterback in the CFL this season, really has that Montreal team on a roll offensively. And he put up 36 points in the first half versus Winnipeg Friday night.
Third down gamble by the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and it goes incomplete, and it's turned over on downs by the Riders. Harris is hurt. He was shaken up away from the play. Talk about Calvillo. Another source of concern is going to be the status of Mike Pringle, who suffered the hyperextended elbow a couple of weeks back. Marvin Pope slow to get up.
I think, though, that Montreal has demonstrated, regardless who they have at that tailback position, is that they can control the football on the ground. And when Tracy Ham is willing to run for another 4 and 5 first downs during the game that he has done in this second half stretch of the season, that offense is so dangerous. You really can't get a key. And Jock Climby has come out of obscurity after 2 poor seasons in Toronto, and I really thought he might get that club's nod as most outstanding Canadian to have a great season with over 1,400 yards and receptions.
Climby just been on fire in recent weeks. Michael Souls maybe just more consistent through the entire season, but 2 of the best Canadians in the CFL this season for sure.
But what he did was he took a lot of pressure off of Chris Armstrong. Chris Armstrong had been Tracy Ham's go-to guy. Jock Climby emergences gave some balance to that offense, so you really couldn't just play one side of it. And when you have a dual set of receivers that is balanced and you have a running game like Montreal, that's a very potent offense.
Well, we've been talking about it. Tracy Ham against Hamilton, the Alouettes and the Tiger Cats in the first half of our playoff doubleheader next Sunday from Olympic Stadium. It's been a while since they've had a playoff game in Montreal, and then it'll be Winnipeg and Edmonton, 2 rivals in the mid-80s in the Western Division of the Canadian Football League, getting back together, and Calgary will meet the winner of that game. And to talk about injuries, Calgary looks like they're coming through this one unscathed this afternoon. What'll be the status of K.D. Williams? That's another concern for Cal Murphy going into the game next week against Edmonton.
Also the quarterbacks for Winnipeg. That's going to be some concern. Who will get the start?
Barrett to finish this one off, and that's Deon Tyler getting his first carry from scrimmage.
Number 41, Gary Rogers.
You know, Deon Tyler is a very interesting story. Kelvin Anderson, the #1 running back for Calgary. Both of these players played at the same university at the same time. He was a junior when Anderson was a senior, and he was his backup. Had an outstanding senior season. Roy Shivers found both of these guys last year doing nothing, brought them in, and Calgary has been very happy to have both of them on the roster this season.
Saskatchewan Roughriders have called a timeout with 1:32 to go. 20-point difference.
Stranger things have happened in the CFL. You can score 3 touchdowns in the CFL in less than 2 minutes, but their offense really hasn't had any spark here in the second half, and that is Saskatchewan.
Well, we talked at halftime about the fact Wally Buono would probably be unhappy with the first 30 minutes leading into the postseason, but I think when he takes a look at this game and the 60 minutes of football, he's probably accomplished just about everything they wanted to do today, hasn't he?
Well, he has. You know, he made a point yesterday talking about what you do during the week in preparation for a game is all fine and dandy. What you're most concerned about is the results on game day. I think he'll be very happy with his results at the end of this game.
Alan Pitts, another big afternoon.
And you see the difference between a team that's going to the playoff than a team that's going home once the season is over. A lot of frustrated Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Well, Mark McLaughlin had 8 field goals in the last meeting between these two teams, and looking for number 6 this afternoon. And he has this one nailed.
Right down the middle.
No doubt about that one. As McLaughlin pads his stats on the final day of the regular season.
Danny Barrett, his wife, and his kids coming over the rail. You know, he's a great family man. He's a great competitor, and he always makes sure that his family is around to help in the celebration of his accomplishments.
Danny Barrett, 11 for 14 today, and that's kind of a magic set of numbers for him a few weeks ago when he came off the bench to orchestrate the come-from-behind win over Toronto. He was 11 for 14 that day as well.
That's his little son, Joshua. He calls him his best friend.
Here's Kemp, and that one almost picked off by Coleman, who was poaching in behind Curtis Mayfield.
Well, this is the time in the game when defensive backs love. Balls are going to be in the air frequently.
Coleman looking for a CFL league-leading 8th interception, or league-tying, with his buddy on the other side. Al Jordan on the other corner has 8. Coleman was that close to tying his teammate. Jimmy Kemp goes the other way. There's Farthing. And Farthing will be short of the first down by a yard, yard and a half. It'll be third down.
You know, Don Narcisse started off this game in the first quarter, had 4 receptions. He has basically been a non-addition to this Saskatchewan offense since that point. They've just gone completely away from it.
Dave Sapunja smiling, an 80-catch season for the Sponge. 7 today, 74 yards. Here's Kemp on third down, and he'll keep the football in Saskatchewan's hands with that completion to Curtis Mayfield. Well, there is no question he is the hottest relief pitcher in the CFL.
Well, that's how the Yankees won. It's like having John Wetland.
Jimmy Kemp goes into the flat again and has a completion. And that's Rick Walters with his first catch of the day. But it looks like Donald Narcisse is going to fall short.
If I run faster than he does,
and that was a great accomplishment by Donald Narcisse to have 7 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. He holds a consecutive game streak. That's still intact. But the 1,000-yard seasons will come to an end this afternoon.
Minute to go in the football game. Second down, Saskatchewan, and Kemp over the middle, and this one is picked off. Jackie Kellogg was juggling the football along with Roger Wrightson, who's moved in at safety for Calgary, and it's Kellogg with the interception.
It was like, you take it, no, you take it. I don't want it. Well, Kellogg's all right, I'll run with it. But another big play by this Calgary defense, and they have been making the plays here in the second half. And that's what good teams will do. They will find ways for someone to come up with the big play. The offense is on to run out the rest of the clock.
Give Wrightson an assist. And Kellogg has another interception again. Calgary led the league in takeaways this year. It's been a big part of this second half, starting with Alondra Johnson stripping away the football to really start the unraveling of Saskatchewan early in the third quarter.
Well, it comes down to that old adage. Offenses win football games, but defenses will win you championships. Calgary has the #1 defense in the CFL. Now they just got to keep it on a roll and wait on the winner of that Western semifinal.
Big second half for Frank Spaziani's group.
The long snapper, Wayne Drinkwalter, when he was a rookie in 1989, he was a member of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They went on, won the Grey Cup that year. He's hoping for a repeat performance this year coming over to Calgary in his first year with the Stampeders.
Just to complete the numbers on Alan Pitts on the season, he had 8 for 108 today, so 86 catches, 1,309 yards. Well, it's a little off the pace of 94 when he had 126 for 2,036, but another brilliant year for Alan Pitts.
2,036 yards that season and 21 touchdown receptions. Just an outstanding athlete. But that just speaks well for this Calgary offense, that you don't rely just on one individual, that you can spread the wealth and have productivity.
Now the Rider pride showing on the far side of the field as The clock is ticked down on their season, and Danny Barrett and the Stampeders get set for the second season. Jim Daly's team will finish the year 5-13. The Calgary Stampeders 13-5, the same record they had in '92 when they won the Grey Cup.
Well, I think this is also the way that Wally Buono would love to finish the season, with his team on a high note. They were upset after the poor performance. He said he really only had 4 players who came out to play last week. I think he can go into the locker room and praise them all today. Let's go down to Scott.
All right, James, here is Dave Sapunjas, prominent in victory today, along with the rest of the Calgary offense. Dave, did the Calgary offense get going just in time, considering the playoffs are next?
I think so. I think we left it to a half, and Danny moved the ball extremely well, and it sets us up perfectly for the playoffs, and we're looking forward to playing Edmonton or Winnipeg.
Looking forward to having you with us next week in a commentary capacity.
Should be a good time. I'm going to enjoy sitting and watching Winnipeg and Edmonton, so it'll be fun.
Listen, start rehearsing your ad-libs now, would you?
You got it.
Thanks, Dave. Let's walk over here now and get Danny Barrett. Danny Barrett just receiving congratulations from Jim Daly, and of course he's with Joshua, his son. No interview with Danny Barrett complete unless he's accompanied by his son. Danny, tell me about coming off the bench. Do you sense this team responds to you the way that everybody else does?
Well, I don't know if that's the case. I knew going into the game that we both get equal amount of playing time today. So I always prepare myself as if I'm going to start anyway. And so it doesn't matter if it's coming off the bench or starting. But the main idea is that we go in and make good halftime adjustments, whoever's in the ball game.
Yeah, the way you played today, starting may be a more serious consideration for you next, or I should say in the West Final in 2 weeks. Do you think you might get the start?
Well, I'll leave that up to Wally, and whatever decision they want to go with. They know my objective is to win football games, whatever the role they want me to play. And I think everybody in the locker room realizes that.
Quickly, Dan, did the Calgary Stampeders accomplish everything they wanted to today, most of it in the second half?
I do believe so. I think first half we came out, we turned the football over, and anytime you play a team like Saskatchewan, they thrive on stuff like that. But we did come out the second half and do what we wanted to do.
Dan, thanks for your time. Congratulations.
And this is Zach, not Zach.
Oh, I'm sorry, Zach. Sorry, got them mixed up. All right, so the Stampeders get their 13th win of the season. They finished 13-5. It's the record they had the last time they won the Grey Cup. Coming up next Saturday on Molson Hockey Night in Canada, another doubleheader. We start with the Oilers in Toronto to face the Leafs and conclude with Brett Hull and the Blues in Calgary for a date with the Flames. A week today at semifinal Sunday on the CFL on CBC. We start in the East with the Ticats and Alouettes at Olympic Stadium for the right to play Toronto. And when we're done in Montreal, it's west to Edmonton, where the battered Winnipeg Blue Bombers play the Eskimos to determine who travels to Calgary to face the Stampeders. Now the Stamps have 2 weeks to get ready for the West Final after a convincing 46-23 win over Saskatchewan, engineered by Danny Barrett in the second half. Thanks for watching, and so long from Calgary.
CBC Sports, home of the champions.